That day, a girl named Chu Zi Tang was returning from school. An unfamiliar guy was waiting for her. Her classmates were behind her. The guy stood by the car with his head bowed. She ordered him to open the door, treated him like her servant. She herself went to the car and threw a backpack at him. The guy had been hanging around her parents' necks for a whole year, but in the girl's opinion, we could find a normal job. The guy's name was Qingli. She again ordered him to park his car further from the school so that his classmates would not see him. They got into the car, and the girl began to offend the guy because, in her opinion, her sister had chosen a bad man. The guy was watching the road, but could not ignore what the girl said, and therefore he got angry and held back his anger. Meanwhile, in the Chu family, people were talking among themselves. The man's name was Ming Hao, and the woman was praising him. He told how in those years he went abroad to study, he probably would not have met Qin Ying. He was interested in Qin Ying and wanted to see her, but she had not returned yet. She was in the company, but the woman was Qin Li's mother-in-law, Han Ying. The man was Qin Ying's longtime friend. He was interested in her fiancée. He was wondering who interested Qin Ying. The guy should have brought Zi Tang in a minute. The woman planned to give them a blessing. Qin Li was already at home. His mother called him to come downstairs. The guy hid in his room as soon as there were any guests. The girl went to his room. She was furious, and not satisfied that he did not hear his mother calling him. The door was slightly open at that time. The girl plucked up courage and looked through the crack into the guy's room. In her opinion, the guy decided that this was his home. When she saw him, she screamed. He was naked only in his underwear, but an unknown power was emanating from his body. The guy seemed to be meditating at that time. Qin Ying returned and blushed at what she saw. She did not expect to see him naked. She panicked and walked away from the door. The guy managed to do what he had been trying to do for 10 years. That day he succeeded. He had a magic layer in his hands. Qin Li stretched his neck. He had waited 10 years for him to succeed. He had such a long-forgotten feeling. It seems he has become stronger than before. The guy was called down again, but this time he heard and listened. He didn't really want to go there. When he was training his strength, something fell on the plant and it put out flowers. It had never been so blooming before. When he went down the stairs, his mother scolded him for not hearing the first time. The fat woman believed that he was deaf. A man was waiting for him from below. The husband was confident in himself, and it was funny that it was her son. He wanted to meet him and extended his hand. The guy greeted him. The man bent his ear to his ear and said that the guy was dumb, and before all that, he was also a hanger-on in Qin Ying's house. The husband saw right through the guy. He continued to look at him carefully. The man believed that he married her only because of her money. The husband was furious because he wanted to be in his place and was openly jealous of the guy. He was ready to give him 10,000 so that even his spirit would not be there. The guy didn't like everything the man said, but he squeezed his hand. The man felt unbearable pain in his hand. And only then did the guy calmly get to know him, the first time he spoke in such a long time. The mother and the girl were surprised that he could speak, because they also believed that he was mute. It seems the guy just didn't want to talk. The husband also did not expect this and was furious that he had deceived everyone, and could have spoken from the very beginning. He knew how to speak, but he pretended to be dumb. He was a real thief. How many noodles did Qin Ying make? From what he heard, the guy squeezed his hand even tighter. The mother, shouting, approached the guy. She wanted him to immediately stop hurting her husband. The girl stood behind, just watching this. Meanwhile, the girl's phone rang. She could not come to her senses after what she heard. Her sister was arrested by the police. The guy took the girl by the hand. He was wondering what was wrong with Qin Ying. There was a problem with the company's affairs and she was detained by the police. The mother approached the girl to calm her down. The guy walked away from what he heard, and the mother screamed after him. At the first complications, he hid in a safe place. The husband was worried about Qin Ying, holding his hand. Her company had serious matters. The police surrounded the office and demanded that Qin Ying be arrested. They didn't have to worry because his family was well connected. First you need to consider the situation. The man wanted to help them in difficult times. Meanwhile, people gathered at the Eagle Constellation Company because there was a quarrel between two people. A woman with problem skin screamed that everyone would end up behind bars. She insisted that she be given multimillion-dollar damages. The girl with long white hair was named Qin Ying. The woman believed that the girl was crazy for asking for multimillion-dollar damages, and stood up for Qin Ying. The man interrupted them. insisting that thousands of women choose their brand of cosmetics. A problem has arisen from it. The reason is not their cosmetics. Fortunately, the man's police chief is an old acquaintance of his, and he was able to negotiate so that Qin Un would not be arrested. The woman insisted. Her name was Liu Wang, and the mayor of that city, Liu Zheng, was her close peer, and he could not contribute to this situation in any way. The husband stepped back and stopped protecting Qin Ning. Since he was powerless in that situation, the woman did not know that there were other bosses in the city. The situation had changed. He has nothing to do with the company, and was on Louis's side, proving that she suffered, and the company owes her as an honorable guest. The guy also wanted to join their quarrel. He asked Louis to give him 10 minutes to explain. The man and Qin Ning did not expect him to speak again. The guy insisted that if the acne on her beautiful face cleared up in 10 minutes, she would call it a day. The man was not very happy that the guy interfered in their conversation. He might ridicule his family even more. His woman didn't understand at all what he wanted to do. She already had a lot of problems, and then he intervened. He didn't give her any reason to worry. He was no longer the same as before. It was time for him to fulfill his marital duty. The man still made fun of him. In his opinion, the guy did not become cool because he learned to speak. He was still insignificant, and just wanted to hit Qin Ning. The employees were actively discussing the guy. He sat on his woman's neck, and while he was still mute, he still had the impudence to treat the woman. It was like a bad joke. Everyone thought she was worthless and dumb. The Chu family did not choose a good guy. But he knew how to restore the beauty of that woman's face. He was too confident in himself. Everyone didn't expect that he would have the nerve to say such a thing. The woman did not trust his words, but he made a promise. If her face was not cured, he was ready to take all the risk on himself. She would be right in any case. Without thinking, she agreed to the contract for a long time, but if the acne did not disappear, she would ruin his life. It was clear from her face that she did not believe in the guy. The girl ran up to him to stop his actions. With his words, he drove her business into the grave. The guy returned to her and was as close to her face as possible. In fact, the problems on her face are just burns, and he wanted her to help him make medicine. The girl doubted that this would help solve the problem, and the guy relied only on luck. The man still did not believe that the guy would be able to make medicine. He wanted to see what would come of it, and defended Qin Ning. The girl brought a bag with things that he asked to get. He had to promise her that whatever happened there, her family should not be to blame for it. He took things out of the bag and began to think. His family would not help him with this idea. It was clear as day, but the new one would change everything. He is not that useless guy, not that dumb person who warmed up the Chu family. He deftly added materials, and was sure that this would help the girl. After a couple of minutes he finished. He needed to rub in a small amount of cream. At first glance the cream did not look very effective. She looked into the bowl with disgust. People were making fun of her behind. The cream was hot and it looked disgusting and not very hygienic. She covered her nose and began to spread the cream little by little. It seemed to her that he was deceiving her. If it got worse, she would put him behind bars. He took a whole handful in his hand and smeared it all over her face. She had nothing to worry about, because he was sure that it would help. The girl ran to wash herself. He caused problems for himself, and the man did not believe that this would help. His woman thought about how else she could help. Not even 5 minutes had passed since the girl ran out with clean skin. Her skin on her face was sparkling. The guy created a real miracle. When they saw her clear skin, they were completely shocked. No one expected such a turn, and such abilities of the guy. The employees did not expect such talents from the guy. His woman was also interested in how he did it. Once upon a time he completed a course in pharmacodynamics. The girl was also wondering if he considered other diseases. He could not give an answer right away. First he would need to examine the patient. What she heard lifted her spirits. Her uncle was seriously ill. If he gets him back on his feet, they will repay him a lot. She wanted him to take on the treatment. He agreed to such a proposal without thinking, but this answer was not entirely clear to the woman, because she knew nothing about his abilities. She didn't let it go away because he was not a doctor. It's not as easy as treating acne, but she was worrying in vain. He knows when to stop. She was categorically against him doing such a dangerous thing. If he wants to get dead people from the other world without 5 minutes, then her family will not help him. He followed and said that he himself was able to decide what to do. Her family had nothing to worry about. The woman was alarmed by his behavior. Meanwhile, in the city hospital, the mayor wanted to save a person important to him, but his condition was noticeably worsening. The risk of complications during the operation was very high. A woman and her husband, who cured her, came to the city hospital, and she asked the mayor how her uncle was doing. That morning, his condition suddenly worsened. Now doctors are performing resuscitation in the ward, which was very unpleasant news for the girl. She wanted to show it to everyone. The girl met a doctor. He knows Oriental medicine, he can cure their uncle. The mayor did not consider him a doctor because the guy looked under 18 years old. He wanted to see his license for review, but the guy didn't have one. He reacted violently to what the guy said. He would not allow this kind of charlatan to even come close to the ward. She regretted bringing him and apologized for this situation, and recommended that he leave the city hospital. But a frightened woman suddenly ran out of the room with the news that they were losing a patient and urgent help was needed. They all ran into the room. It was the mayor's father. He stood over his body. It was extremely bad for him to watch his father die. He panicked and looked for options on how to cure him, but at that time the doctors were powerless. No medicine or surgery helped. The girl still hoped that her uncle could be saved, but if the chief doctor of the best hospital said that this was all, then he should believe him. The guy intervened in their conversation. His uncle could still be saved, but there was no time to choose. The mayor wanted him to leave the room. The guy was annoying and wanted to make a bet with the mayor. The guy was confident that he would cure the man. But the mayor was against the bet. But if he saves his husband, the mayor will apologize to him, and if not, he will put him behind bars. The mayor did not want any persuasion. The girl said that he had better leave. The guy was upset that he was not heard. The guy will leave, but he could have helped his uncle. Then they will blame themselves for not taking advantage of that moment and not listening to him. When he left the room, his wife was waiting for him from behind the door. She believed that he had ridiculed and disappointed her again. She ordered him to go home before he caused trouble again. His wife was angry with him for being so confident in his abilities. Suddenly something strange began to happen. Something bad was happening to his father. His body was shaking, and the doctors did not know how to help him. They called the pacemaker, and loud sound was heard. The man's heart stopped. They felt sorry. In that situation they were powerless. Recently everything was normal and suddenly his heart stopped. Unfortunately, the mayor will have to come to terms with the fact that his father has died. He sat down crying and grieved over his body. He screamed that he never deserved his father's love. The mayor regretted that he could not save him. The guy burst into the room. He still wanted to help the man. The mayor until the last thought that the situation could not be corrected. The doctor also did not expect the guy to come. 10 years ago, the monk initiated him into the secrets of ancient medicine, but in exchange he demanded a contract. His hand radiated magical power. The surprised mayor, with tear-stained eyes, could not believe his eyes. There was definitely magical power around that guy. It was blue. He was silent for exactly 10 years, did not say a word, and that day the agreement fell. He could be a doctor. Fate itself led him there. He used needles for treatment. The guy endured every opportunity and was happy about it. The man began to show signs of life. He moved his head. The mayor and the girl did not believe their eyes. In just a little bit the man would be gone. The doctor didn't understand how this was possible. It was like magic. The best doctor didn't know such a treatment technique. The husband got up. He gradually came to his senses, but scared him to death. They were much better when he woke up. He gently stroked the girl's hair, but told her not to be angry with him. She didn't believe her eyes. When the guy was about to leave the chamber, the mayor fell to his knees in worship and shouted his name. He apologized for his evil soul. He behaved unworthily, but despite the fact that the mayor expelled him, he helped the man. The guy won their contract, and the mayor didn't need to take anything else to heart. He knew how the mayor felt. His family member got sick. Then the main thing is that he has recovered and is on the mend. The girl also apologized for that situation. She asked for a bank card number to transfer him $500,000. The guy was happy to help them. He had to discard the card in the evening. He went out the door, where his wife was still waiting for him. She also thought that this was some kind of magic, and praised him. Everyone needs a guy. She didn't think he liked interfering in other people's affairs. This didn't seem to surprise her at all. Behind the door was a man who didn't like him. The guy was asking for trouble. He didn't like the guy's popularity. They came home. They were met by a woman. She was worried about Chi-Noon. Because of the unpleasant situation that happened in her company, the woman could not find a place for herself. The girl assured the woman that she had nothing to worry about. In fact, the man helped her correct the situation. The woman began to be aggressive towards the guy, but forced him to clean up. The girl could barely stand on her feet, she needed to rest. He entered Chin-eun's room after finishing his chores, but he entered at the wrong time. The girl was doing yoga at that time, wearing only a transparent dress. She invited him to practice with her. She again stood in a new position. The guy took his things and was about to leave the room. Tang complained that he had not done anything all day, but he just brought her home in the morning, went to change clothes at his place and forgot to lock the door, and she was smart enough to go into his room. He looked at her breasts, they would be completely visible. She deliberately provoked him, but he did not want to fall for her temptation. The guy blushed, but could hardly restrain himself in front of such a gorgeous girl's body, but then continued to watch how she was doing. She believed his words, the girl knew her character well, and the guy wouldn't bother with her. She bent even more for him. The guy proved to her that she was behind him, like behind a fireplace wall. She felt safe with him. He's been lucky all day and she's proud of him. There was going to be a small family party soon and the guy was supposed to go with her. The guy without hesitation agreed to go with her. She threw herself on the bed and was exhausted to death. The girl thanked him for helping her with that day. The next day everyone gathered at the evening table. There were many relatives. The whole family gathered for the first time this year. The guy looked at the older woman. He wanted to praise her dress. She was still able to talk gossip. Her name was Chu Gue. She was the elder sister of Chu Dinghua. Her eyes sparkled like gold and drank wine. She wondered when Chin-eun and her husband would have children. The aunt had strange questions. They had not yet thought about children, because they did not want to rush, but the woman pushed them to have a family. There is no need to put children off. Youth is so fast, they should not make parents nervous. The woman thanked her aunt for the advice. This man's name is Cheng-won. According to his aunt he has children, and the woman decides everything for him. He blushed because of what his mother said. Mom Chin said with an evil thought that her aunt's son-in-law was not the simplest. He was a very rich man. Her son has his own good place in the government, not just like some. She didn't mean to offend Chin, but she said these words deliberately to offend. He brought his uncle a gift. This is the first time they all gathered this year. He wanted his uncle to accept it. Cheng was amazing as always. There was a porcelain bowl. He heard how his uncle was fond of porcelain, so he allocated 30,000 to buy something expensive. He didn't mind it for a memorable gift. Cheng knew how to squander a lot of money. They looked at the gift in surprise. Cheng wanted to show himself superior to their son-in-law. But the bowl was not worth that much money. It was clear that it was a well-made copy, which was quickly thrown into the tomb. It's hard to even call the bowl a copy. Cheng gave him advice to take a closer look at the bowl, but he is a disabled person who has taken root in their house. How does he know about that kind of money? He is the one who will head the department any day now. Maybe he could be hired as a janitor for the good. I would feel sorry for him, better than nothing. He wondered how he liked such an idea and continued to laugh loudly. The woman could not stand it and shouted at him to stop and spilled the wine. She thanked him for the ideas, but Chin Li is also a member of the family. He should think about what he said. He alone could not afford such gifts, so there is a lot of point in talking about it. Li got up from the table. He came empty-handed, but Cheng was surprised that he could talk. His woman believes that he wanted to give a gift, but did not take anything. He's the same poor man just talking. But he didn't care. He was sure and claimed that in front of them was a copy of the bowl, not the original. Cheng didn't like this opinion because he invested 30,000 in this gift. He didn't earn a penny, but he clearly saw the copies. He didn't care how much Cheng spent. In front of them was a real copy. They were deceived by 30,000. Cheng got up from the table and poured the wine. He had no right to call his gift a copy. He didn't understand anything about it. It was pointless. The guy wanted to show evidence, but the man closed his mouth. The guy did not obey at all. He had envy of Chang and anger. It was too much. It was his woman's man. This means that my sister's husband gave not an antique, but a simple copy. The guy was sure that it was a 100% copy. Even if it's a copy, it's better than anything they gave. Besides, it's their family evening, and it shouldn't spoil their conversation. During the quarrel, the mayor and Wu Fang came to them. They heard what they were arguing about, and wanted to see if it was really a copy. Cheng couldn't think that the mayor would come to him. He wanted to introduce him to his guests. It was the mayor of their city, Liu. But the mayor passed him by. He was glad to see Li. He didn't expect to meet him. he still didn't know how to thank him for yesterday. Cheng didn't understand what was happening. He wanted to notice that the mayor was mistaken because this Li Qing is dumb and insignificant. He was not pleased that the mayor did not pay attention to him. He returned and looked like a demon. It was Cheng who was useless. He began to worship him and say that this is him. The mayor asked if he had any problems with this, but there were no problems. This is the woman's family. They were arguing among themselves, and he was only interested in one thing: is it an original or a copy? He looked and concluded that it was definitely not a dynasty bowl. He asked an expert to check whether it was original, and whether this bowl was worth its price. For many years now he has retired from those activities, but previously his specialization was precisely the products of that era. He looked at the colors and they looked like the Yuan era. Cheng was relieved to know that it was not a copy because he spent a lot of money on this gift. Until recently, Qing Li thought it was a copy. He thought that he didn't care about his assessment. This scared the mayor a little. He laughed and patted the young man on the shoulder. Now he realized what the mayor liked about that young man. It was a 100% copy of the Yuan era. On products of the era, if you look closely, you can see the mark. All patterns are applied strictly by hand. The technique is old, but unsurpassed. Well, this is just a copy, although well drawn. In addition, she clearly had time to lie in the cellar for a long time. He liked it well, and there was one thing: such bowls often put a sign of death. It was very well drawn on the bowl. Everyone suddenly panicked. Cheng was scared. He didn't know anything that this bowl was for death. The woman told him to quickly wipe his hands. This is a very accurate copy, but the guy saw the mistakes. He has wonderful eyesight, and invited him to come to his department when he had free time. Everything was resolved well. The mayor wanted Li to be his guest. He never dreamed of meeting him like this and wanted to chat along the way. The guy went with them. After they had dinner, he had to come back. They didn't expect him to have such connections. The woman saw that the mayor and her son-in-law were close people. She surpassed her Cheng. She did not want to talk about it, so as not to jinx it by accident. Otherwise, who knows when the mayor will come. The mayor, worried, wanted to talk to him. After his departure, a new misfortune appeared in their family. During those 2 months, his woman and children, and he himself, began to feel worse and worse every day. They went to the doctors. According to all tests, they were completely healthy. The guy decided to check his pulse, and there was really something wrong. He wanted to hear what Li understood. He wanted to think it over. He asked to cancel plans by the evening. He should come to him after a family dinner. For the mayor this was good news. He himself would be waiting for him in his house. The family dinner had already ended. Li was loading his relative into the car, who had had a little too much alcohol. He asked them to go home, but he still needed to run errands. The girls agreed. The man said something drunkenly. Using his phone, he wanted to get directions to the mayor's house. It was close. He just needed to turn right. There stood the same man who didn't like him. Behind him stood a bunch of guys in uniform with weapons. He prepared him an unpleasant gift. Only that day he ran into him twice, but he forgave him. The man was crazy and wanted to finish off the guy. He sought revenge. But he turned out to be bolder and was not afraid of many men. That man, like an upstart, always appeared at the wrong moment. The man will help him start the fight. Everyone ran at one guy like wild animals. He did not get into a fighting position and stood confidently. He beat everyone in one movement without even harnessing himself. The guy used all the techniques in battle, but fought exclusively with his feet. When he killed everyone, he could confidently say that few people took one for him. The man was shocked at such speed. It was impossible. He was insignificant. How could he kill so many people? He changed a lot in a day and became irresistible. He wanted to kill another man, but he ran away because he was very scared of him, but he was not surprised that he did so. The guy exhaled and went about his business. The mayor's house should have been in that area. The guy's strength and speed were amazing. He came to his house and rang the doorbell. He immediately felt bad energy. Something terrible was happening in that house. The mayor opened the door. His face showed how the evil forces were draining him. They were already waiting for him, and wanted him to quickly enter the house. He showed his house. The mayor did not live poorly. The guy needed to take a look. The situation seemed dangerous. There was even more bad energy. They heard the children's screams and ran into the room. Their child seemed ill again, and this was not the first time they had experienced this. The woman threw herself on the floor and threw over the bowl. Something incomprehensible was happening to the child, and where did a lot of black smoke come from? The boy cried in pain and his body flew in the air. dark forces took possession of him, the silhouette of a dragon did not allow him to breathe. The mayor begged to examine his son. Lee had to release the evil spirit from the guy. He took needles in his hands and explained how he would drive out the spirit. The guy was possessed by a spirit. He shouted not to interfere and leave here. His eyes were filled with the color of blood. Lee threw his needles. The guy's body was paralyzed, and the evil spirit in the body was furious. He could not stand such torment, but that was not all. This treatment was not enough. It entered a point in the middle of the forehead, and with every breath the guy tried to squeeze out the evil spirit and cleanse himself of pain. The woman saw that Lee was not very skilled with an evil spirit. She accused the man of bringing just a guy who would bring him to death. Evil spirits were controlling their bodies. Things were really bad. He needed to speed up and he used his blood. The spirit was released from the guy's body. Its 3 needles were visible in the air. It was through them that the spirit left the child's body. Everything was corrected and the guy woke up. Mom rushed to her son. Lee gave advice to be calm. It was all over, but there was something else. He wanted to find the cause of the evil spirit. He looked in every corner of the house. An evil spirit could appear due to accidents, or because of strange gifts. 2 stone lions were delivered to him. They stood at the entrance. He ran outside and found that thing. It was lions that were the cause of all their illnesses. Behind the lion there was a small stone that spread evil. Every day, leaving the house, he passed through lions. The stone was directly connected with the evil spirit. Over time, the stone began to infect the mayor, and under the pressure of an evil spirit, he began to feel weakness and tension in his body. And so until the very end the guy knew how to destroy it, and it was quite easy. He simply crushed the stone in his hands. The woman approached Lee but didn't know how to thank him for saving her son. She didn't have to worry. The main thing was that everything was fine with her son. It was happiness for them that they met him. The mayor wanted to give him a ride home. He wanted to help him open his clinic. The guy was speechless from what he heard. Lee should have thought carefully about opening the clinic. The mayor was very generous. Such kindness was due to the fact that he saved their family. The clinic that will bear his name will be his token of gratitude. Having his own clinic, he will be able to help people and improve his skills. He wanted to find his parents. They would definitely be proud of him. Leaving home, he looked at the evening city. He asked the driver to stop the car. He saw through the window a man who was important to him. The guy hit the seat as the driver slowed down. He saw Qin. She was in evening dress. He was wondering where she was going on such a night, and began to watch her through the window in the car. The driver was surprised that the guy had good taste in women. At first glance it was clear that he was a woman and what he needed. A short-haired woman was coming to meet her. With her open clothes she caught the glances of men. This was her best friend. The guy was in vain working himself out. As soon as the woman came closer and took her hand, they kissed sweetly on the lips. No one expected such a turn. Lee was in an unpleasant shock, and the driver rushed to take a photo of them. He couldn't believe his eyes. The guy didn't realize that she had a different orientation. The driver noticed that the guy had good taste in women, but the driver misunderstood everything. They went inside the room. The woman whispered in her ear to take her something stronger. She couldn't find a place for herself. She thought that she didn't mention her. They sat down at a table. The bartender was preparing drinks for them. Lately she had been overwhelmed with work, but work, as they say, never leaves a wolf. The woman did not want to think about such unfortunate things that evening. She wanted to have a good night with her. She would not return home sober, and they drank. Her friend understood her well. At first her family forced her to get married. She couldn't stand their conversations. Qin was already under the influence of alcohol. Her friend's eyes were blurry. It was all sad for her, but she pushed her to drink even more alcohol. The friend didn't actually drink, but pretended to drink. As soon as Qin fell asleep and didn't pretend, the friend took her to the secret room. She brought her in a state in which she could not even stand on her feet. Behind the door was the very man who did not like her husband and wanted to be with her. Qin barely moved her legs. The man took her to bed. The room itself resembled a love room. There was a camera on the side of the bed. He put her on the bed and locked the door. There were only 2 people left in the room. He whispered so that she would not be angry with him. He just asked not to marry that guy. She simply left him no other choice. He touched her lips with his fingertips. As soon as he began to undress her, mocking her, the camera began to record video. Someone suddenly loudly knocked on the door. The man thought who it could be. She told him at the door in a girl's voice that she had brought him a gift. He came to the door. That girl seems to still want to earn some money. but it's worth it. But as soon as he revealed to us there was a surprise in the form of Qin, he was wondering how he found it. He saw his woman lying on the bed. The man said that he had misunderstood everything and began to worry. He saw Qin and decided to take care of her. Without letting him finish, he kicked with all his might. He used magical power. The man flew far away to the sofa. Qin asked how he would like to die. He was on his knees and asked to have pity on him. Before he could blink his eye, he would disappear forever. He looked at his woman. The man asked for mercy again for the sake of his woman Qin. He agreed and let him go. But as soon as the man walked away from behind and attacked him with a knife, he just wanted him dead. Twice he let him go, but he did not correct himself. Now he will be responsible for his actions. He stuck the needle right between his legs. He fell to the floor in pain. White foam came from his mouth, and the knife fell out of his hands. He wanted to see how he would speak now. He threw it out the door. He felt good because there were many good cases that day. Now he was calm. He wanted to ease her suffering. With a needle he improved her intoxicated state. Magic eliminated the blue color, and from the expression on her face it was clear that she was in pain. She opened her eyes a little, and he began to talk to her. She began to gradually come to her senses. He was interested in how she felt. She jumped out of bed and hit him on the cheek. She thought that he was wooing her and did not want to rape her. He had just saved her. Everything was confused in her head, and she thought wrongly. He calmly reacted to her hysteria. She covered her body and didn't expect that he would try to take her by force, and then appear as if he had saved her. In fact, she didn't know the whole situation. She didn't want to believe his stories, but he really didn't do anything. She can freely believe or not believe him, but he left the room. As soon as he closed the door she threw the pillow. She was very furious with him and acted like a little child. She started crying and heard the photo being taken, turned her head to the side. The camera recorded everything that was happening. He went out into the yard and his phone rang. It was Leah Wang. He asked what she had to do with him late. She talked about the cream he gave her. She wanted more of it. It literally changed her. Her skin had never been so soft and elastic. The guy was happy. He asked her how much she needed. He will return home now and think of something for her. She wanted to start with 200 jars and pay 2 million, but that money was too much for him. Her uncle let it slip that he should open a clinic. She would sponsor him. Qin was already at home. It was dark outside, and the guy wasn't there yet. Today she was very offended by Qin. He's probably angry too. He walked quietly into the house, where a girl was waiting for him on the sofa. She shouted out why he had just come. He had some urgent matters, but she was offended that he did not warn that he would return late. She swore off something she wanted to say. He understood that she wanted to apologize. She was just almost right because she made hasty conclusions without knowing the situation. Most likely she will be fired from the company. He has been starting projects with Liu Wang often lately. They behave like a couple. She was openly jealous of the guy. But this has nothing to do with her dismissal. But if she loses her job, no one will take care of their family, especially since she will not be able to immediately find a new company. He sat down on the sofa and wanted to tell her something. When the other day he helped a sick man, he cured the father of the mayor of their city, then he helped his son, and he donated his clinic. He will be able to earn a little money by healing the sick. If she wants, he will be glad to have her help in the affairs of the clinic, so there is no reason to worry. She looked at him with a strange look. For her it looked like he wanted to try to calm her down with his news. He went up the stairs to his room. The clinic was supposed to open later. She had to think carefully. It was important to him what she said. She mentally thanked him for his concern. There was something she didn't understand, but she definitely had to apologize to him for everything. The next day, someone came to them early in the morning. The guy came down sleepy and felt that nothing good would happen outside the door. It was a girl. Her name was Tang Zi. She was Qin's best friend. He looked at her for a long time. She wanted him to invite her to the house. He fell asleep at the door, and the girl said how Qin married that worthless guy. It's like throwing a rose in the trash. She was also against her boyfriend. He felt that it was bad that she came when they were smaller. She often did dirty tricks, poured chili pepper into his shorts, then he was irritated throughout the lesson. The guy still didn't want to let her into the house, so she called Qin down to go shopping. The guy was driving the car. The girl asked where they were going, although she knew well they were going. They have already arrived at the site. Only special people can receive an invitation to this auction, and this is also the tallest building in the city. The best thing is the blind auction of precious stones. After ordering, you can find out the real price of the stones, often twice the price of the lot. Well, you can also lose everything. It seems that the entire elite of the city has gathered there. She asked if the guy could buy a stone for the woman. Everyone looked at the stone and set a higher price, but the guy was bored watching this. He approached the stones, he felt the energy of the stone connected to his body. Chin just wanted one for herself. She advised her so that her boyfriend would not deceive her with a copy. But if he tries to deceive her, the girl will take revenge on him for her. The girl was not very comfortable. She noticed her boyfriend was missing. He chose a stone and wanted to take this one, paid 100 money. He searched his pockets for money and got her all his funds. He asked for help to break the stone. They found her boyfriend. Her friend thought that he was looking for something in the trash. It was impossible to find a gem there. Everything was as usual. A friend often complained about her boyfriend, but he spoke heroically about the clinic. The girl was not very happy that she was constantly complaining. She began to defend Chin, but thought that he was deceiving her. But when the stone was cut, it was a real emerald. All the people ran to the stone. There was an emerald in the garbage. It was like a pearl among the garbage. It was great luck to find an emerald. All the businessmen came running to the fireplace because they thought that they would also find emeralds. They did not mind spending all their money. Everyone wants to buy an emerald from the guy. Some offered 1,000,000, some 100,000, some for 30,000 and a girl as a gift, but the guys were not interested in all this. One person from the crowd shouted that he would give 5 million. He calculated and the emerald was worth approximately that. It was the famous Big Boss Tang. He was a famous jeweler. The man insistently wanted a stone and was ready to give him 5 million. The guy bought this stone for the woman, so she decided what to do with it. Her friend had never seen such an expensive stone. Her father did not waste words. But she was not averse to selling, because he is a man who knows his business and understands it more. For him there is no equal. It was an honor for him. She praised the jeweler. This embarrassed him a little and her husband was delighted. He wanted to write a check in her name. How could they miss such a stone? The jeweler wanted to know how the guy realized that it was an emerald. Even he, a famous jeweler, could not see it. From the outside, for him it was the simplest stone, without any special features. The guy could not tell that he had a gift. The woman wanted him to say how he chose one of the stones among others. People thought that he might have a sixth sense. He could not take it at random. He respected the Mr. S secrets, and did not demand exact information. A woman approached him. This stone was already a jeweler. In appearance he was a simple guy, but he was often lucky. It turns out that this is the first time that the price per item in a blind auction has skyrocketed so high, and although her father likes to talk, it is no longer so important. The nugget cracked into 2 parts. Now it was very valuable. The friend could not believe her eyes, and the guy was not mistaken in his choice. This means the jeweler was not mistaken from the very beginning. He shook Chin's hand and winked. They knew a lot about stones. If he cheats on being a jeweler, then the man will help him. He wanted to tell him something, but the jeweler did not want to hear the answer because he wanted him to think it over, and the next time he would say everything. The jeweler knew everything from the very beginning. They were driving home. The girl was wondering what kind of tricks were at the auction. He read books when he was at the university, and handed her a piece of paper. She threw the piece of paper out of her hands. The girl was disappointed that he had deceived her like that before, pretending to be dumb for so many years. Even earlier, one sage wanted to give him a book so that he could study it from beginning to end, and in 10 years he would have no equal among mortals. But for these 10 years he will need to live in a strict regime in order to cultivate the chi energy within himself. The sage wanted to teach the young guy a magical power that no one had, but for the sake of this the guy had to remain silent. This would forever deprive him of his fate. The sage wanted to see how his lucky star would light up and how he would have magical powers, but it was time to say goodbye. The guy was telling his life story. He wasn't deceiving her. He really couldn't speak because he was mute in order to receive the gift. But she didn't believe his words. She thought he was joking with her. She was wondering why he was so wise to marry her, and he decided to remind her of what happened between them. When he was in college, he was mocked by a classmate for being mute, spilled soup on his head, and cruelly extinguished a cigarette in his food. The girl came to the defense of the mute guy. It was not right to mock him. She felt sorry for him and she could not just stand by. Then she remembered everything. When after graduating from college she proposed marriage to him. He was in 7th heaven, but he knew that their spouses were only a fiction. She asked without fear that why he didn't hate her, but he wasn't so cruel as to hate her because she didn't know the truth. He instantly turned serious. The Chu family didn't particularly offend him, and even less so. Besides, in his heart he always considered her his wife. She lost her head from modesty. She was very pleased to hear this. The girl did not think that he would tell her such a thing. They sat in silence for a couple of minutes. And the guy decided to say that one of these days he will be opening a clinic and it must be there too. For her it was like a joke, and she couldn't believe him until the very end, because counting people is not as simple and easy as he thinks. Healing people was his goal and his life's work. He knew what he was doing and knew how to treat people. It was not for nothing that he was mute for 10 years. But she was still involuntary with him, because if he did something wrong, no one would go to jail for him, and she would not be to blame for it, much less participate. The guy didn't understand her hints. In fact, she was worried that something might go wrong and his clinic would soon close. The other day his clinic opened under the name Yin and Yang. Fireworks were set off, and a lot of people gathered to wish the guy good luck and happiness. The relatives gathered at the table again. In their opinion, there was an excellent son-in-law in the family. Only when he had time to see the sick was unclear. The fact that he opened a clinic seemed like a lie. Chin sat next to her father. His son-in-law is full of hidden talents. For example, he saved the mayor's family, and he was in charge of the clinic for him. You can't resist such a gift. After hearing the words, the man instantly began to mock Chin, even daring to open a clinic, as if he was tired of living. But this time the guy did not remain silent and behaved quite confidently. He did not see the connection between the clinic and tired of living. The husband thought that he was taller than the guy since the Chin land was now in his known. Last time he made him look like a fool. Even the mayor ignored him. At that very moment the mayor and his sister came again. They greeted him with the opening, and brought gifts. Chin was glad that they came. Last time, the mayor raised a glass to Chin's health, and again came with greetings to the clinic. He did not understand what connected them, and it drained him. Chin came up to pick up the gifts and invited him to the table. The girl said that he looks great in his clinic and this job suits him. His girlfriend closed the menu and said that recently Chin talked a lot in the car, but now he was filled with water because he didn't talk much. Externally, the family heard screams asking to save his son. They paid attention to this. The guy could take advantage of this moment to show what he could do. The man held his son in his arms and cried tears of bitterness. His body trembled and his face turned blue. Chin rushed to the rescue in time. Relatives still ran out into the street. The boy was seriously ill. It was necessary to call an ambulance. It did not look like a simple illness. He just opened the clinic, and prosperity came to his door. The man was hiding. He wanted to see how he would get out of this situation. The guy was in very bad condition. The father asked Chin for help. He was able to do it. He asked to take him to his clinic. He was taken to the ward. All the relatives gathered near the child. Chin was just checking the pulse, and for this he had to use magical power. Through his gift, he made his way into the insides of the child, and saw that the stomach was in poor condition and dark in color. His son has strong digestion. He asked so he could eat this. Chin was also worried about the child, so he needed this information. He didn't know exactly what the guy ate, because his neighbor looks after him every day. When she's free, of course, there's a high probability that she poisoned him. It was not normal for a mother to leave her child with a neighbor. No responsibility. He was embarrassed and lowered his head. His woman died a long time ago, and he needs to work for 2 people in order to raise money for his child's education. They did not live very well. There was little money. There was a dark energy in that guy. He was very close to death. The symptoms were similar to poisoning, but it was something else. Someone shouted that he bought a diploma from this doctor while on the move. He had no right to open a clinic. People came in and demanded a diploma. He was a thief. People were against the doctor. After what they heard, they didn't trust the doctor even more. According to the right thing, he should have taken the guy to the hospital. The son's father became even more angry. He didn't know that there was an unquestioned doctor in front of him. He would not allow his son to be harmed. But the doctor did not allow the child to be taken away, because he was in serious condition. Every second was important if he did not immediately figure out that his boyfriend would die. The boy began to cough up blood. The doctor took away the blanket and told everyone to move away. He would immediately begin to treat the child. 5 internal organs ensure the functioning of the entire body, and the 6th protects internal energy channels. They hold and connect the entire universe. Canals absorb the spirit, and rivers absorb the seas, and the seas absorb the oceans. The man used needles for healing. He stuck needles in different places, he used the dotted technique, it was a special type of treatment. The child began to feel sick, Van stood up and vomited all the poison. The father could not believe his eyes, he thought that he had already lost his son. He hugged the child and apologized to him. The child really wanted to eat, he had a great appetite. Fortunately the doctor saved the child, no one else would have been able to. The father felt good about the news that the guy was hungry, he wanted to feed his son as quickly as possible. The husband was now crying with happiness, and not with grief. The doctor compiled a medicine, the crisis was over, he gave advice so that now the father could go to the hospital without risking the guy's life and be checked by a doctor. The husband knelt down and said that the doctor was his savior and, in general, a healer from God. The father was very happy because his son was fine. People also have hope. Recently they thought that the doctor was a thief, but now they have seen with their own eyes that he does everything honestly. Who would have thought that he would save the guy? There was a man hiding behind the room, he was angry because Ching managed to cure a man again. They only glorified his clinic, they poisoned the guy in vain. The old man shouted that the doctor did not have a diploma, he was on the side of evil, he must have patience and his business will fall, let him live a little longer. The husband ran out of the clinic and called his grandmother. She may not believe his words, but today he met a real healer, he was responsible. The doctor left through the back door of the clinic, he was very exhausted, he seemed to have counted quite a few people. The guy wanted to close everything and go home. He heard strange sounds, a dark-haired woman was standing by a tree, her clothes were torn and she was holding a bloody knife in her hands. The doctor thought that she had come to visit one of the patients. She ran sharply and wanted to attack him with a sword. The doctor was scared and told her to stop, he had no bad intentions, the guy is a simple doctor. But suddenly the strength left her body, and she fell to the ground. The doctor did not understand what was happening. It seems he will be in the clinic all night. For him this was not very good news. He brought the wounded woman into the room. In places on her body she could hear blood, but it was not clear whether it was her blood or some person's. It was also surprising that there was also blood in her eyes. His phone rang, it was his woman. She twisted her hair and told him that he had another patient. She asked if she should wait for him in the evening. He thought and said that there was no need to wait for him, he would spend the night at the clinic. The girl thought about what to tell him in response. She shouted into his phone that maybe he could still live in the clinic, and knocked him out. His ears were blocked from screaming, he was carrying medicine at the time. He thought about how to cheer her up, and the idea came up to buy her something next time. The guy was a little concerned that she was angry. When he was performing surgery on her, he took out a bullet and noticed some kind of badge on her neck. The guy only realized that it was an army badge for special purposes. In their troops, some specialize only in stealing important data, others in hacking military equipment. And there are those who secretly influence society. They had advanced modern technologies, they could track down any thief. But they are Squad 19, one of a kind. The pens consisted of 1 woman and 3 men, all members had weapons, and the next time they wanted to complete a task. The chief said that the 19th corral from today, they are free from service. For the woman it was like falling on sharp needles. She had one question, why? She came to her senses and could not believe that she was still alive. The doctor bandaged her hand, but some of the wounds were minimal. The doctor waited for her to come to her senses and stirred the medicine. She asked if he had saved her. Her head was also bandaged. He created a magic powder. A couple more minutes, and her life would have ended. He would have been powerless to help her. She understood everything. The woman tried to get up, her body was shaking. The doctor asked what she wanted to do next. She barely moved her legs and reached the door. But something stopped her. He was right, she had nowhere to go. She had neither a home nor a job. The woman was left alone with her problems. He was just looking for an assistant. He was wondering if she would agree, but she did not believe that it was serious. He opened the curtains. The sun was shining brightly into the room. This was a good idea for the guy. Every month he guarantees a salary, not millions, of course, but it will be enough for her to live on. She was wondering why he saved her. Now her future completely depends on him. If he can be useful in something, he is ready to go through fire, water and copper pipes. But first, she had to go to the ward and fully recover. Someone persistently knocked on the door and asked them to open it. It was Chin's friend. When she opened the door to the one who hit him in the face, he was obliged to go with her. The girl was looking for him everywhere and screaming. She came to him so early, he didn't expect her. She came to officially invite him on behalf of the Tang family to participate in the Big Jasper Games. He took the tickets in his hands, she pulled his tie. He did not expect that she would come for this, but he had to go immediately. They came to the main auction of precious stones blindly. The girl came from Qing again, dragging him by the tie like her dog. The girl met her father. The jeweler was glad to see Qing. He did not hope that he would come. Qing was a little embarrassed. He did not know that the jeweler was waiting for him. The jeweler thought only about the fireplace. To hell with curiosity. He hoped that the role of a diamond seeker would not greatly harm his plans. Qing realized that the jeweler wanted his advice. He had seen with his own eyes what Qing was capable of, and his help would be very useful for his business. This auction is divided into two stages, auction and sculpture. The winner takes it all, namely the expensive stone of the gambling champion. On the stand there was number 12 green dragon. These people will also take part. The tallest one was called Chow, the man with glasses was called Lin, and the one with the Panama hat was called Hu. Everyone was chosen by the jeweler himself, a good 4. The girl felt that her father gave a good sum to get to this auction. If they were at least in the top 3, he would make them rich from head to toe. The girl was telling the honest truth. If their zinc helps them take first place, he will immediately give him 10% of his jewelry empire. She whispered in Qing's ear that even if it doesn't work out, even though she is Qing's best friend, she may have offered him something else, but he will do his best. After a little time, they found themselves in the main hall. The man joked, asking if he could choose the stones himself without adults. The man pointed out that the guy was too young to be at such serious auctions. Even though he was new to this business, he was very lucky. Lin handed him a card. Although Qing was in a good mood, but they had invested a lot of money to be there, and for him to only play children's games. The guy picked up the card and asked how many million they entrusted to him, but those people were not as good as he thought. The husband joked again, if he had any money in his hands. Lin thought that 1,000 was enough for him. It seemed to them that he wanted to take the money. They left, and the man concluded by saying that it was precisely because of his merits that they had no chance today. No one believed that he would find a worthy stone. He turned his head and saw a good stone. The stone seemed to attract him. It was with his feeling that he could feel the precious stone. The guy came closer to the stones. A saleswoman in a short skirt stood in front of him. She asked which stone he wanted to take. From afar, he heard a familiar voice, with the one with whom he should cooperate, loudly saying that the winnings were in their hands. At least 5 million would be earned for the stone. He was silent and continued to look at them. The girl asked again and he would take the stone. He handed her a gold card. There was about 50,000 on it, so that should have been enough. When he was buying a stone, those 3 approached him. Lin said that look what kind of stone Qing bought. He is interested in what place he is claiming. Lin bent down and began to threaten him to go home quickly and run away from shame. The jeweler would definitely not be happy with such a choice, but the guy did not pay attention. The guy didn't see the problem. He bought the stone, and what place it would take was definitely not their concern, especially since the jeweler himself invited him. He didn't ask for it. The jeweler approached them to reconnoiter the situation. All the participants made their choice. The jeweler relied on them all. Lin whispered in his ear that this time they bought the best stone by far. He would prove that he would take no less than 3rd place. The jeweler really hoped for them. Finally it would take its rightful place. At first glance that stone was very good. Someone approached the jeweler. It was the rich Tian. His rumors bought a lot of stones. That time the winning stone was taken from under the jeweler's nose, and he again dared to come to be mocked. He looked at Qing and asked that he had really fallen so low that he took the first people he met into his team. He had absolutely no normal ones left. He wanted to give him advice on old friendship, to leave here on good terms. At least he will leave some self-respect behind. Tanim will no longer be welcome in Wuhan. It is better for him to pack his things and go to his homeland. The jeweler was tense and angry. Lin said that in order to trust him with this matter, he wanted to say that this guy was forced on him. The girl asked for people's attention. Their auction was declared open. She is Thin Sun. She will be their host for this evening. She asked if they could guess who would win, if they had time to place their bets. There were only a couple of minutes left. A lot of people had already gathered near the stage. The jeweler was wondering where the Qing stone was. He hid it in a box. those of yours began to mock him, a piece of garbage for 20,000, he should be ashamed to show this. The jeweler was let down by Qing, for 20,000 such rubbish, he is still very young, but he saw with his own eyes how the guy chose the stone without hesitation. The first win and immediately a green glass insert, the next stone they see the core of the color imperial green, they are lucky with the win. People made very high bets on this stone, the first participant and immediately such high bets, but the game had just begun, the man was alarmed. They are having a hot bidding today, the highest amount bid is 63, 52, 42 million, the final participant in their bidding, this is the House of the Tans, right now they will present their fireplaces. Lin came onto the stage, he was taking out all the stones that they had bought, they were only 2, he was carrying them to the device to check if they were diamonds. While cutting stones, he thought of only one thing, that the color inside would be green, he was sure that the stone would be green. People looked at the result with admiration, and the jeweler worriedly expected that they had green stones. Qing did not understand what they spent a couple of million on. The time had come when they were supposed to see what kind of stone it was, but what they saw disappointed them, it was a simple stone bought for 5 million. Tan was defeated, behind him he heard people mocking him, it was a big failure, if you look at it like that, today is a unique day for Tan. Who would have thought that they would buy an expensive stone, but inside it was empty, they were very disappointed in Tan, it was all over for him. But that was not all, Qing had not yet cut his stone, he confidently walked onto the stage, hiding a box of stones behind him. Tan was worried that this stone would also be empty, and he would ridicule it even more, people were interested in knowing what stone Qing had prepared for them. He cut the stone with a smile on his face, it was an imperial green stone, it looked like a simple stone, but inside it was so beautiful. They shouldn't have underestimated Tan. Lin got angry, he barely collected 20,000, and then he was so lucky, perfectly green, the guy was very lucky. He needed to invest all the money in Qing, he probably would have made him a champion, he regretted that he did not take only one Qing. The presenter saw that the guy was cutting the stone itself, Qing knew what he was doing, Tan came on stage to stop him, Qing was destroying the stone before his eyes. Tan could not believe what he saw, there was a jasper figurine inside, a bloody stone was found inside the nugget. In the past, the price for it was 1 billion, everyone was shocked by the guy's abilities, he found the most expensive stone, he chose it. This is a rare figurine of jasper, it took thousands of years to form such a nugget, one point of view is enough to understand that there are no stones equal to this in the world. People, like wild people, set the highest price because they wanted to get this stone, the man wanted to get it, it had to be in his hands. The man watching from above added his words that not everyone can boast that they have seen such a stone at least once in their life. Behind him was a sick old man. The old man was getting worse and worse, the symptoms of the disease were intensifying, but this is how it should be for people in old age, the older he got, the weaker his health, no one knew how long he had left. The girl wholeheartedly congratulated Tan on the contract for 2 million, and having received the title of champion of today's fight, the girl until the last thought that Tan would not win. What happened today at the fight opened their eyes a lot, but, the contract was for 2 billion, people could not imagine that he would receive the winnings. Tan approached Qing, he thanked him from the bottom of his heart for today, if not for him, his company would have been a complete failure, he apologized for his mistrust. But Qing did not hold a grudge against him, but Tang's words were important to him, and he did not hold lunch because Tang did not trust him completely. In favor of an apology, he wanted him to accept the entire amount of the contract for the sale of the Jasper embryo. Tang did not mind the money for Qing, he did not even have time to say a word. They didn't care if he was against it, since that day he was the most welcome guest in their family. Moreover, after the triumph in the battles, the glory of Tang would spread beyond the province, so he had to accept the prize without refusal. A bunch of men approached Qing, the one who made this fight for the most expensive stones, the young man Jiang, respectfully asks him to come to the Jiang family, he definitely needs to visit them. The letter said that he was invited to join the Jiang family. Qing arrived at their luxurious home, the guy was surprised at such a big house. The security knocked on Jiang's door, Jiang Jr. opened the door, he was waiting for him impatiently, he wanted to quickly get through and make himself at home. Today at the battles, Qing performed a real miracle, and surprised everyone, his sick father was still in the room, his name was Jiang Sr. Qing thought that Jiang was joking. He was shocked that he invited him to his home, but he thinks that this is not a simple thing and he has some important business with Qing, but there was no business, just a desire. Jiang talked about how Qing cut the stone and found a magnificent diamond, but he still continued to cut. Did he really know that there was a hidden nugget inside? When he first took this stone in his hands, he felt a special warmth and immediately realized that the stone was not easy, so he continued to cut to understand what was wrong with it. Jiang understood everything. He was thinking of inviting Qing so that he could find the jasper again, unless, of course, at this point the old man interrupted him with his cough. The guy looked at the old man carefully. His health was very bad. The old man saw that the guy was looking and asked that he saw something strange in him. To be honest, the guy did not promise a complete cure. The disease was very progressive. He was afraid that he would not help the person. The old man was not surprised even because the guy was also a doctor. The guy had all the abilities. He was the only person with such a gift. Qing had recently opened a small clinic in his place. He was wondering if the old man would mind if he felt his pulse. Jiang was shocked that he was still a doctor. They had already visited all the medical centers in search of help. Whoever would figure him out. If Qing understands medicine, then the old man would not mind him examining him. With the help of his magic, Qing seemed to be inside the old man's head. The bad energy had already penetrated deeply into the man's body, and he used the needles again. An hour later, the old man seemed to have exhaled all the bad energy. His health became much better. He could move his arms without pain, but he was only able to suppress his illness for a short time. But in order to completely destroy it, you need to find the first cause in Jiang the elder himself. He takes care of his grandfather, but he didn't even go outside. But now it's as if he started a new life and has the strength to live on. The guy dared to ask a personal question whether they had received any particularly expensive gifts. He thought that there might be deception in the gift. The old man was remembering something, but Jiang rather thought it over and remembered to give them one expensive gift. What Jiang brought was a jade stand. It was brought directly from the grave. Long-term contact with similar things can lead to death. The old man slept on this stand, and felt the cold of the grave at night. He could not even think that such a thing could threaten his life. His grandfather's illness was just because of this. He didn't know how to thank him. He wouldn't find the stone or he would find it. It didn't matter to him. They owe him any request. He could ask for whatever he wanted. They are ready to do anything. Jiang was very kind to him. Saving people is his job, and he would be happy to help with the search, but he only had one wish. Jiang put his hand on his heart and he understood why Qing delayed with his wish. The Jiang family would be pleased to fulfill his wish. Qing held out a photo. It was of his family. His parents disappeared 10 years ago, and still nothing about their fate is clear. Jiang took the photo in his hands. He understood Qing, but 10 years is not a small time. It will take a lot of time, but on his part he will make every effort. Qing didn't care how long it would take. He wanted to find his parents, and Jiang would be the one who wanted to do this. It would be very nice on his part. Jiang remembered that Qing had to find Jasper, but he didn't have to worry. Qing could take on this matter right now. He didn't have any serious plans. He thanked me with all his heart and asked to accept his small gift, 2 billion on the card. This is only in advance. Once he finds the stone, special gratitude will not keep him waiting long. They agreed that as soon as Qing found the stone he would immediately contact him. Jiang again thanked him for coming and apologized for taking away his free time. As they said goodbye, Jiang wondered what if their family could no longer achieve fame, and this was their last chance to live so happily. The next day he came to the clinic. He was glad to return. He wanted to see who needed help within the walls of his clinic. Just as he was about to enter, a man's voice was heard behind him. He was eagerly waiting for Dr. Qing. This man had trouble walking and had problems. He had been having headaches all the time lately. He wanted Dr. Qing to check him out. Qing was not very cheerful, but, of course, he wanted to help the man, because it was his job. He could not refuse him, and invited him to his clinic. Behind them, a man shouted that today was the opening of the Tangov Treatment Center. A descendant of the great Tangs, the great Bo Tang himself today conducts a check on all people. It is Tang who conducts the reception. People should not miss this, because there will be no such chance again, and the quality of treatment is guaranteed. The man brazenly invited him to the clinic. The husband doubted that Tang was number one in their place. He was stopped by the fact that it was free and he decided to listen to the offer to the end. But he was number one without lies. The gift of treatment has been passed down in their family for more than 100 years, other clinics cannot boast of this. My husband immediately ran to him and asked for his number. He whispered in his ear that they were selling fuflomycin at the Yin and Yang clinic. 2 days ago they started running around like crazy, and only just returned. Qing stood right in front of them, pushed the fire inside him. It was anger. The man only said what he heard himself. He was very afraid of Qing. A man came to their conversation. His name was Tang Bo. As if it was not important to act like a doctor, he should have at least a little respect for people. He has been a doctor for about 10 years, and here some little kid can call himself a doctor of Chinese medicine. Where is the world going? The man actually didn't believe that he was a doctor. The doctor wanted to see what he could do for him. The man took off his hat right there. Qing also wanted to see what kind of illness he had. What everyone saw was horrifying. There were small purulent pimples on his head. He didn't know what kind of disease it was, and he wondered if he would be cured. The doctor didn't know what it was and ducked down with fear. He's been treating people for a long time, but for how many years he hadn't seen anything like this. He was worried because he didn't know how to treat. The doctor smiled nervously. He pretended that there was nothing heavy there. They would quickly cut off the purulent pimples and he would be happy. He picked up a large needle. Qing tried to stop him. This man's purulent acne can only be operated on with a fiery needle if he does not want to harm him. He brought the needle to his head and began shouting at the guy that a healer like him didn't need the help of some small children. He told him to stop, but it was too late when he injected the blood that was leaking. This is a mutated herpes virus. Such sores cannot be removed using such methods. The doctor did not understand what was wrong with him and what was happening to him. He did not understand what to do with such an illness. Qing wanted to rush to the aid of the man. But this was his patient and he stood in his way. In the center of Yin and Yang, there were no rights to him. The man could not bear this pain and was spinning on the ground. Qing could not resist and hit him with his palm. He had so much anger that he splashed it all on the neighboring doctor. He was stretching his hand from the blow. People were like dolls to the doctor. What kind of doctor was he after this, and what kind of doctor was he after what he said? That Tang did a very bad thing. He managed to pierce the place where the evil energy is located. Qing thought about it not being too late. He used a magic needle. The guy penetrated his body. He saw that everything was very bad. The virus penetrated deep into the body. It would not be easy to cure such a condition. Moreover, because of the crooked Tang with his needles, the disease subjugated almost all of a person's vital forces, and he had one way out. He used a hot needle. The guy killed the entire virus, and the man woke up without the disease on his head. Qing felt relieved that he was able to save him. Qing was a little ashamed that he had disgraced the Chinese medicine clinic. He needed to contain his anger and not touch the doctor. The doctor was angry that the guy was able to cure the man, and he offered him to win him in a fair battle. The guy didn't really understand what he was talking about. He insisted that the guy take part, and this fight would be about helping people. Whoever helps people the most will win. But whoever makes a mistake first closes his clinic forever. It was risky for the guy to go to such a competition, because it had only recently opened. He straightened his tie and agreed to the competition. He is Qing Li and will take this blow on himself. The guy risked his clinic, but he was sure that he would not lose. There were a lot of people near the clinic. Yin and Yang competed in treatment with the Tanga clinic. People wanted to look at it and take part in these competitions. Tang was healing another group of people, and this was not the first time a woman thanked him for his treatment. There was a young woman near Tang. She helped him. People from the crowd said that Qing was a good healer. A couple of needles flowed, and he was like new, such a young doctor, and he treated like a saint. It was surprising that the guy treated better than the older doctor. The guy treated well. He has been treating for more than 30 years to treat at a good level, but the guy only started yesterday and there is not a single morning. His assistant became somewhat thoughtful, and the doctor called the next patient. He was in shock. A man with the same disease came to him again. The girl came and began to complain that her head had started to hurt lately and her chest was squeezing. People were taking pictures of such a beautiful girl. It was unbearable for her. She wanted the doctor to examine her as quickly as possible, and she took his hand and brought it to her chest. He didn't really want to touch her and took his hand. He asked her not to worry. First he wanted to take her pulse. She touched him and asked him to look at it carefully. It was surprising that when he checked her pulse, it was beating strongly, and the internal organs were not injured. Her health was all right. During the process, screams were heard. a man visiting a senior doctor grabbed his heart and fell to the ground and froze. Something strange was happening to him. More doctors came running to help. The man had a large amount of foam coming out of his mouth. They should immediately call an ambulance because the case was fatal. It was necessary to quickly examine the man. The doctor fell into a stupor again. People did not like how this doctor treated him, and they went to the yin and yang clinic, because this clinic did not increase trust. After that incident, the family went to the yin and yang clinic. They didn't want to trust those Tans, they wanted to go straight to the yin and yang clinic. The girl heard these words, and she pretended to have a headache, and fell from the chair to the ground. She asked him to see what was wrong with her. Dr. Tang ran into the yin and yang clinic. He shouted that he was rejoicing early. If he did not cure her normally, then they would have a draw, neither would win. The guy was selecting a needle to treat her, and thought about using the largest size and again wanted to look at her carefully. Her face, which betrayed what she was afraid of, he warned that if you inject in the wrong place, you could leave the patient crippled for the rest of her life. She pretended that it was a surprise, and in fact she was healthy, she was not sick at all. Tang was involved in this matter, he was the one who sent her. Dr. Tang lost this battle. Tang showed his unsatisfactory behavior. He was the most famous doctor in his place. Liu Chen himself bowed at his feet. If he was known to a doctor who had the right to lie to people, he was not worthy of calling himself a doctor. Qin was at least honest and won this battle. Qin no longer listened to Tang's lies. He shouted that he would remember the day for her, and the day would come when he would apologize for humiliating him. His shift had already ended and he took off his robe. The girl was wondering if she could already help the doctor, but her wounds had to heal. She tried to twist her hand and everything was fine. There was no need to worry, but she thanked her for her concern. If she could be brown, he could give her a task. This was good news for him. She could already gradually take root here, but in the near future he would need her help in one matter. Suddenly the phone rang. He picked up the phone and greeted him. It was a woman. She was calling through the fireplaces, the task that Jiang gave. They expect a large shipment to arrive in Yangcheng after the weekend, but there was one more thing. But this is not for a telephone conversation, he will be interested. She hoped that she could interest him, but since she wanted it so much, the guy suggested they meet. The girl was in a towel, and drops of water were flowing down her body. She would send the exact time and place to his phone, and that was the end of the conversation. The next day, Tang was watching TV. There was news about how two big doctors from their city competed in medicine. The Tang clinic was defeated, and their main healer had to give up medicine forever. All the doctors of this clinic were in danger because of people's criticism. Tang didn't want to watch TV, and the news made him even more angry. Someone knocked on his door. He was looking for healer Tang. He said to get out of here. This was the man who also did not hate Qin. He wanted to help him take revenge on Qin. He handed him a sheet with a plan. Only Tang could carry it out. It was a recipe. Qin stretched out on such a sunny day. He wanted the girl to walk with him. For her rehabilitation after being injured, this was what she needed. Besides, today he had something to do with her. She again thanked him for his concern. She already felt well and was ready for any business. They just needed to look at the apartments. There was nothing difficult in this matter. He wanted to improve the moment and talk to her. He was wondering how old she was when she started training. Apparently her parents were also military. She lived in a training camp from the age of 3. But her parents were never there. She was forced to defend herself from childhood. She was small and already in training camp. In her years she saw a lot of bad things. But now she won't have to sleep on the damp ground. He saw a counter with strange things. A man found a dagger with his own hands, so the price was at least 500. He bought this sword, but was it really something precious? She could see it with her own eyes. He brought the burner to the dagger. Dirt was dripping from it. It was a good dagger. It turned into a special shape. The dagger was not simple, and the guy decided to give it to the girl. She was very happy with such a gift. The girl was already swinging swords, practicing new techniques that she knew, and his woman called him. He was wondering how she was doing. She was in tears and told how her sister was kidnapped by unknown people. Qin was shocked and immediately got down to business. He had to leave. There were urgent matters at home. Questions about the apartment were completely entrusted to her. He handed her the card and told her the password. He completely entrusted her with the apartment and money. He spoke into the phone so that the girl would not be afraid, and asked her to tell her specifically what happened. Meanwhile, at the racetrack outside the city, a bunch of people with their cool cars gathered. The man grabbed Z by the hair. If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame herself. His name was Tsu, it was her boyfriend, he told her to keep an eye on him, she had no right to make herself feel sorry for her, but he no longer needed her, and he wanted money for her. He completely lost his conscience, and his friends told him to look the other way. It was Ching, he came to save the girl and brought a ransom for them. The girl was not very pleasantly surprised, because he was useless, and why did he come if he was so weak? It was probably hard for him to get to such a distance. He demanded money, and in order to leave here, it was not surprising that Ching reacted calmly to this. But such an offer did not suit him. He suggested that he take the money and order his people to disappear. Thieves do not value their name. They were funny because of their good name. That crazy guy decided to make them laugh to death. The man twirled his finger in his mouth, showing how crazy Ching was. The Chu family made themselves look like real idiots, and he will keep everything, both the money and the girl. He blew smoke from a cigarette directly into Ching's face and ordered her to take the money. He came in vain and can leave. In addition, they treat the little girl with love. As soon as they play enough, they will immediately send her home. Ching did not let him prove it. He kicked the man, all the money scattered. The Z guy didn't understand what had just happened. Everyone attacked Ching, but his strength was full of energy. He crushed the thief to the ground with his foot. The husband thought that he was a real devil, and most began to run away. Ching got to him. He only asked not to be beaten in the face. The guy hit him in the face multiple times. He did not listen to his wishes. She didn't believe that it was her sister's husband, and when he managed to become so strong, he killed the entire crowd. This exhausted him a little. He solved it. He wanted to get out of here as quickly as possible. Since his family couldn't find a place for themselves, she told him the words that she was embarrassed to say. Next month there will be a family day at school. She invited him. And suddenly she began to get angry with him. They are not afraid of these idiots, just let them try to open their mouths. She just wanted him to leave with her. He was lucky. We can assume that these idiots got him an invitation to a family day. He gladly wanted to come, but if he was free. The next day he met with the assistant at the clinic. The task was completed. All he had to do was go to the sales office and formally complete the contract. It was quick. It was time to talk about Ching's house, otherwise it was not the case to live with her parents all the time. He didn't want to delay and ran right now. While they were driving in the car, his phone rang. The man had news that Ching would never guess, and wanted to tell him as soon as possible. He was in Wuhan and bought 10 houses for his clinics. His name was already on all the documents. Ching was pleasantly shocked. They had already even started renovations there. Ching did not know how to repay, but he did not ask for gratitude. He is his eternal debtor, and besides, he is really looking forward to Ching deciding to move to Wuhan. He was wondering when he could move. He found a small villa for him, but he didn't need it, since he had his own house. They arrived and entered the room. The woman turned to his assistant. They quickly returned, and she did not know that Ching was standing in front of her. The girl explained that Ching is her boss. He wants to buy the Paradise Villa, number 1, Ching Li. She didn't believe that he bought the most expensive villa. This guy studied 9 grades, probably the simplest, makes a lot of things out of himself, wants to take a villa for himself, but the Zhao family is also eyeing this villa. They even paid her to keep it. She came up with the idea that Paradise Villa number 1 had already been sold. They were happy about their profit, but if he is ready to handle the entire amount, he can resell it in front of her eyes. Behind her, her friend was laughing. The girl was the first to deposit the amount for the reservation. Then why was it sold to other people? The woman acted cunningly because she did not see that they were really rich. The woman was wondering with what intention she was interested. The Paradise Villa was on her shoulders, and she deserves the richest and most important man. Ching didn't like the way they worked with clients. She didn't hide it. She thought that he was worried that he wouldn't have enough money for a villa. This desire was very expensive. The main one approached the woman. It was Sister Jiang. She said everything correctly. Important and rich people with a brilliant position in society should live in the villa. The woman did not notice how the main one approached and panicked. She hit her in the face. Ching was the richest and most important to their family. She greeted him and told him that she was Jiang's sister. Her name was Chu. She was the boss in this room. The woman saw his photo with Jiang Jr. It was she who spoke to him about the stones on the phone. She apologized to him for doing this to him, but it was not very unpleasant for him, and he was already accustomed to this attitude towards himself. The woman realized that it was him. a good friend of their main one, but it didn't matter who knew him. The main thing is that she does not cause problems and does not try to sell his villa to other people. He was absolutely right, her behavior was bad. Qing did not want to wait for the documents and said goodbye. Chu wanted to help him with the paperwork. But he left without even thinking. She ordered the guards to remove this woman from her sight. They grabbed her by the shoulders and dragged her out the door. Meanwhile, the woman was covered in acne. She claimed that it was from this clinic that she took medicine. She showed the police what happened to her face. She was not the only one. They called Qing a fraudster, that he could kill like that. As soon as Qing arrived, he noticed people at his clinic and the police. The woman pointed her finger at Qing that he was a merchant. The guy who sold them bullshit appeared. He didn't even understand what bullshit she was talking about. They bought the cream from him, and this is the result. He only sold 200 jars of Liu cream. The woman shouted that he was ready to do anything for profit, and he should be put behind bars immediately. They wanted to handcuff him, but the girl defended him. They did what they needed to do. They wanted to detain him and interrogate him. The guy was taking something out of his pocket. The police became alarmed and demanded that he raise his hands up. He wanted to contact the person responsible for these creams. He called Lu and gave the phone to the police. They were bothering her about the incident with the cream that Ying and Yang were selling at the clinic. This couldn't be the case. He's the only one who uses it privately. Liu came to that event herself. She thought that Qing had made a new batch of cream. It seemed she had already run out. Qing was sleep deprived. He knew the whole batch to her without a trace. She had already used all of it, and wanted him to look at her skin, so she thought that Qing had come up with new creams. On the other hand, no one could get these creams. The policeman asked if she could confirm her words. She is an important lawyer, and she was responsible for her words with her position. She told them the honest truth. He took the card in his hands and wanted to clarify everything. If among them there are those who are telling lies, then they must prepare for the fact that they will be condemned. They were worried and did not want to go to jail. He wanted them to admit what was happening, and began to behave aggressively. The woman decided to confess first. She wanted them to write down that she was the first to confess. Their one-man Tang gave them a recipe, everything that would happen to their face, so that they would say that everything was bought from Ying and Yang, and for that 10,000 each. Meanwhile, those people who hated the Qing were playing chess. Lu was a true professional in this game. With this strategy they and their enemy would win in 2 steps. The winner always goes to the best. In just half an hour they made the cream, and this is the result. Someone rang the doorbell and the doctor came up to them. It was Qing. He opened the door with one blow and threw the doctor away. He ran his head against the bedside table. He asked the doctor if he was injured and wanted to help. Lu, wondering why he was not behind bars, maybe because the reserve was quickly found, Qing knew that this was what they had planned. Lu pointed the weapon right in front of his face. He was a mental patient who had come to the point of using a weapon. The girl immediately rushed to Qing's defense. He also hit the doctor's bedside table. If he decided to play games, then the girl would be happy to play. He wanted to make sure that they didn't run away from him. They were caught by the police. Today was definitely not their day. They tried to deceive an important person, but next time they will think better than to wave their fists. Chu wrote to him on his phone. Everything in his villa was closed. He could leave right now. After lunch she will be in the Wild Orchid. I will be happy if he comes to her. He had important things to do. Those two were on him. He came to Chu. She invited him to sit at the table. They had just delivered special red tea from France itself. He should try it. And at the same time they will end with some questions. She brought the documents. The last payment remained and the villa was all his. She wanted to introduce him to another member of the Jiangjie family. He heard that Qin was coming and asked him to take him with her. He wanted to cooperate with him. It was a great honor for him. He is also Jiang's manager, and is subordinate to Jiang Jr. He was recently sent to Yangqing to optimize the operation of entertainment areas for families. He is happy that he met him himself. He wanted to express his gratitude himself. Qing shook his hand. They were very kind to him. He is interested along with the papers he mentioned. They say that he came up with some kind of medicine and it completely healed the face of the mayor's niece in poor condition. The family's company was interested in similar earnings and would like to sign a contract. He is confident that because of the resources of their company, its good name, his medicine will be an unprecedented success. After the projects are fully launched, the main range will remain with him. Qing was a little worried, because it was a big responsibility on him. He saw it like this: from him the cream, from them the creation and money. he will receive 80% of the shares, and the Jiang family only 20%. Judging by the fact that he openly mentioned Liu Zheng's name, the Jiang Corporation had long-term plans in Yangcheng, in which case they need to prepare the ground, and his cream can play an important role in this. The husband was worried that he had been thinking for a long time. It seemed to him that this was not enough. Chu sat down with him. She would like to compensate him for yesterday's misunderstanding. She and Jiang had already agreed to everything. Soon this club will become the largest in Yangcheng. And they would like to give it as a small gift, and they asked to accept him. He rejected the documents. He didn't remember what happened yesterday. He couldn't accept such an expensive gift. She thought that he had forgiven her for yesterday's misunderstanding, but he himself did not want to accept the gift. Jiang Jr. will decide that his refusal is her fault. He violently put the mug on the table. The guy didn't like the way it put pressure on him. Then there can be no communication. She took back her gift. If everything turned out this way, then the man wanted to at least give him a gold card. It is valid in all entertainment complexes of their family, and completely exempts them from paying for any services. He thanked and took the card. They breathed a sigh of relief, and regarding the contract with medicine, Qin had better think about it. Jiang Corporation is ready to show strength production and down channels. He agrees 50%, but with one condition, that his main woman will be in the project. This was good news for them. Starting tomorrow he would prepare all the documents and sign everything right away. Chu was surprised that he agreed. Today at dinner, the stone supplier is just planning to stop at their apartment complex. If he is suddenly interested, in which case it is time for him to leave. Everyone needs him today. He had already arrived at the warehouse, bringing in stones. Time passed very quickly. He saw it and checked every stone. This work was not easy. He was very exhausted, and thought to find another way out if he wanted to find liquid jasper. He remembered how last time, the guy found jasper with the help of magical power. He didn't know if he would be able to feel something, and he tried. He checked all the stones and one glowed red. He found the stone he needed. Most of everything there is jasper. It was already getting dark outside. Qin thought that he would even come home. When he returned, the whole family was waiting for him. Qin thought that that girl from the clinic wanted to fight Qin off. He could not understand who she was talking about. She showed him photographs. His mother-in-law also understood that he had gone to the side so that his spirit would not be in their house. He saw himself in photographs with a girl. She was just an assistant, and they thought that he had betrayed Qin and committed treason. Sister Qin demanded the truth from him. He didn't know where these photos came from. Qin also wanted to know the truth. He told it like it was. The girl ended up in his hospital with a serious injury. She didn't even have a home. He invited her to live in the clinic. He even dialed on the phone so that they would believe his words. The girl asked if something had happened. Everyone was shocked that the guesses were false. Qin saw that the situation was different. The girl in the photo was called Liang Qing. She is an orphan. In the morning she knew nothing but military training. She really had nowhere to go. He was the only one who extended a helping hand. If he had explained everything earlier, she would have understood him. My sister was ashamed that she did not understand correctly. Qin dared to doubt so much, but the situation did not turn out very well. Qin took his arm and wanted him to go upstairs with her. She didn't let her parents sleep anyway. As they climbed the stairs behind them, they hid the bladed weapons, testing the bag for Qin. He remembered that he had to tell her. The Jiang Corporation plans to open a common business with him. Tomorrow they will come to shake off the final formalities. She was shocked that they would cooperate with the Jiang Corporation. Where are they, and where is their family? Will they really have a joint business? The next day she came to sign documents. He welcomed her with the job of being a director in the new company. The man honestly hoped that their cooperation would be good. She will work hard. Her husband enjoyed her. Qin really insisted on her candidacy. He talked non-stop. The girl was Miss Graduation at school, took motivation courses and many other good things. This is how she is in his eyes, she muttered under her breath. Qin left for Wuhan today. Is this really related to the company's affairs? This confused her a little. Qin, with a bad bet in his pocket, was able to find blood jasper that was worth almost $1 billion. Their company, represented by Jiang Jr., asked him to help with the search for similar nuggets, and it bore fruit in a couple of days. At the airport in Wuhan, Qin met with Jiang. The women noticed that the guy was from their company. Jiang couldn't bet that he would quickly find the stone, but this matter was not difficult for him. When they heard that he would be in the garden, they asked to invite him to them to express their gratitude. he did not accept refusal. They had not prepared so seriously for receiving guests for a long time. Qing hoped that the nugget would not disappoint them. A man was waiting for them in the room. His name was Jiangli. He thought that the guy who saved their grandfather looked older. He probably laughed. The guy just understood Chinese medicine. The son wanted to find out what was with the stone. He didn't even know how to say it. Qing gave them a nugget that he had not seen for a very long time. It was an emerald pearl. It was worth hundreds of millions. Exactly how much it costs, he did not think that he would have the chance to see a similar rarity again. To be honest, he had seen her for a very long time. The price was too in. Qing, the real guardian of their family, he once again gave them an underappreciated merit. He was glad that they were arbitrary. When they had already discussed everything, Jiang remembered that Qing had asked for one favor. He handed him an envelope containing all the information about his parents. He took the courage to take more information. But he was not sure that all the information was accurate. It was better for him to look for himself. Most of the information was vague. He was not sure that he could trust it. But there was one piece of news that he did not put in the folder. 2 years ago, a trace of his parents was found in the capital, but only once. Qing wanted to know this was verified information. Jiang received it literally before his arrival. The information was not confirmed. As soon as the test results arrive, he will contact him immediately. They came to a hospitable complex. This restaurant belongs to his sister. Her good reputation is known to everyone in Wuhan. He must definitely try the chef's dish. His younger sister approached Jiang. Her name was Jiang Zhan. They agreed that they were supposed to go shopping today, but he disappeared somewhere. Yesterday he talked about pearls all evening. He couldn't close his eyes all night from worry. Shopping completely flew out of his head. He introduced Qing to his sister. He seemed to have seen a certain photograph of her in a magazine. They say that at the age of 20 she became a real business shark and opened her own restaurant. Now it controls half of the restaurants. Qing wanted to greet her, but she did not make contact. They stood rooted to the spot. She shouted for them to enter the restaurant. He left her with the shops, and now an invitation is waiting. They returned and started whispering. My sister had 1-. She doesn't like to deal with men, so it's better for him not to take it personally. The sister heard everything and began to get angry, but suddenly a man ran towards her. He shouted loudly that they had a problem. There were a lot of people in the room. He behaved in an uncivil manner. One employee is trying to bend him down from the roof. The police have already begun to evacuate the house. It was necessary to quench this immediately. Everything was under her control. She wanted to sound the alarm. Jiang apologized for this situation. He only wanted to treat him to lunch. He couldn't even imagine that this was happening here. But he himself said that Qing is a member of their family, so there is no need for an apology. He wanted to find out what was going on there. If his help was needed, he would help. The woman was consumed by bad energy and she stood on the edge of a cliff of a tall building. The main one was already here. She was ready to do everything in her power. Qing felt a stupid eye and a black aura. It was not for nothing that the girl wanted to commit suicide. Some force was pushing her to such a concession. Main ran to help her. She didn't need to jump. She needed to move away from the edge. Qing wanted to stop her because it wasn't that simple. The girl caught her and bent her down with her. The girl deliberately waited for the main one to approach her in order to also kill her. Qing rushed to their aid, and caught the main girl and that girl, and threw them back onto the roof. This required a lot of strength. The main one flew straight at the guy. He had a wonderful view from above. She softly landed on his pelvis, and the girl stood up. When the girl who was in a bad aura attacked him, he dissolved her with one movement, and the bad energy disappeared in an instant. The main one looked at it in surprise. The girl was embarrassed that she was sitting on the guy. Jiang just laughed and congratulated him on a successful landing, and Qing has a talent for doing this. From the very beginning, the guy depicted what was what. It was not easy to explain. He thought that one of the sorcerers had cast a spell on this house, so I saw the aura, and so the employees began to go crazy. Until the very end, the girl did not believe that he was telling the truth, but unfortunately it was true. This house could still kill someone. He had just saved her, of course, but she didn't like him talking about her house like that. That didn't give him the right to say that about her restaurant. But there was nothing like that, no black auras. The main one was interested in how that girl was. It seems she was in a simple deep sleep. It was necessary to call an ambulance. Jiang would say the words of Qing to whoever needed it. It was luck that Qing appeared close. He himself understands what would have happened to his sister. their family is forever in debt to him. There was no need to discuss this, especially since they already help. He quietly placed the amulet in the pot. After 5 minutes, he also heard about the young person and what happened to him, so he disturbed him. It was the master, he needed his help. Even if there is something in the house, he will find a way to solve everything. First, he wanted to take a closer look. The whole house was covered in a bad aura. This is not a matter for a simple sorcerer, he only knows two who can solve this. Jean spoke on the phone. As soon as the results of the examination came, they were supposed to call her immediately. She would also bear all the expenses. Her father came to her, they told him that she had problems. He invited the master. He noticed that someone had left a jade gourd. He was wondering who left it. It seems it was the man who passed with Jiang. If it weren't for this pumpkin, it would be hard to get through the deaths. There was one charlatan there who only spoke in riddles. It's a pity that her father wasn't there then, otherwise he'd definitely been pushed out. She only believed in science. The master thinks that the master, the owner of this pumpkin, helped them with this. Her father asked where Qing was, but she didn't know. He and his brother had gone somewhere. They came out to them and asked what had happened. The father invited the master, Cheng, to deal with this problem at the Jean restaurant, and they wanted to find out something in Qing. He just looked at the energy of this restaurant and it wasn't clean. He showed him a pumpkin on his hand. He found it in a pot. Qing completely refused to tell the truth that he had put it there. He didn't expect their hero to be so young. A new generation of metaphysicians is growing. If Qing had not hidden the pumpkins, a chaos of deaths would have erupted in the restaurant. Qing shut up the bad energy in the restaurant. His father hoped it was all over, but Qing said honestly that it didn't take long for a solution to be found. When this energy caused the girl to throw herself off the roof, he decided to leave the pumpkin in order to somehow contain the flow of evil energy. There was weaker energy on the roof. Qing wanted to disturb the master. He wanted to borrow some coins from him. The master gave him pennies in his hands. The guy threw the coins up. Bad energy was breaking free, and not weakly. The master and father also noticed this. It was impossible that the energy was bursting out with such devilish force. When the bad energy gathered, the guy buried the sword in the house. This was also impossible. In a couple of seconds there was a big storm of bad energy. Qing resisted a lot of force. Everything was already over. He asked to call the hospital. The unconscious girl should have already gone through a bad condition. The guy did everything he could to help them. His technique surprised the master. An old man like him has a lot to learn from him. They were incredibly lucky that he was close. Who knows what would happen to the restaurant? The girl is out of sorts. He doesn't need to take her seriously. Jiang hasn't been able to thank him properly for 2 days, but today he brought him to a luxurious place. Jiang prepared the room. The man was not comfortable, but there were no places available today. The butlers were completely rented. Jiang was unhappy that there were no places. For a man, this is the most dear guest. He never wanted to lie to him. A man was coming to meet them. He wanted to understand this situation. The man's name was Zhou. He was the head of the Zhou family. He knew him. He was Vsevolod Jiang. Jiang couldn't understand how he got such a bad word that the whole door was occupied, but he took it. This is in Jiang's repertoire. All day long he makes some kind of murky schemes just for a small vegetable garden, and the capital is too tough for him. My husband took the liberty of talking about his business like that. His family is not the last people in the business. He wanted to talk about Jiang. They tried a lot to win a place in the capital, but there was nothing to return with. Jiang told him to repeat what he said. His eyes filled with hatred and malice. He remembered that he ended up in the clinic because he said such words. The guy looked very strong. How could Jiang beat him like that? Is he really that good? The man was no longer so weak and kicked him. Jiang reacted in time and blocked his attack. He was pushed back by the blow. Jiang did not understand when he became so strong. Jiang and the man ran to attack each other. The husband asked him to kneel down and call him dad. It was not too late to change anything. No wonder grandfather Jiang threw him out of the capital. He also would not recognize such a grandson. Today He Chao will punch the face of every Jiang on his way. He wanted to punch him in the face. But everything changed in one moment. After a couple of seconds he fell on the table. Jiang did not understand what happened, and Qing was next to him. He was full of energy and protected him. Qing is a doctor. How did he manage to learn how to fight? It turns out that Jiang has military friends, but he still has a lot of strength left. Like a soldier after a forced march, he was lucky because he got help, and the man left. If it weren't for Qing, he would have been severely beaten by now. He could not calmly watch while he was being beaten. At first he thought there would be no fight, and they began to hit each other's faces. Jiang wanted to eat, otherwise he would be late for the plane. And his sister also wanted to go to Yangchen, saying that she missed her old friends. He bought her tickets for his flight. If it's not hard for him, then Jiang asked to look after her. When they took their seats, they were offered cold drinks and snacks. Qing was reading a magazine and Chu passed by. She noticed him. She constantly bumps into him. When she walked a little way, an unknown man slapped her on the ass. The flight attendant asked what happened. The girl pointed with her finger who had just touched her. He asked it unexpectedly. The pilot came to clarify the situation. He needed to apologize, because this is a deeply respected passenger of their airline. If he does not apologize, he will be blacklisted. The husband pointed the weapon at the captain. Ants crawled through his body. The one who slapped the girl played the scene like a god, but the other one was also good. It was a hijacking and they had to prepare money and valuables. For those who are not ready to part with valuables, they have a special offer. Qing took the girl to him and covered her mouth. She did not make a sound and follow him. The robbers ordered not to deceive them, and prepare the money and handed it over to him. They went to the toilet, where she could not worry and be safe. He went to them and asked them to close the door. He wanted to kill the robbers. The girl didn't want him to get involved with the raiders. He could have given away his wallet and phone. Otherwise, with the robbers, he will bring them to the grave. She loved to eat brains. It was a real sensation for them. They have been carrying out this system for a couple of years, but he does not remember such a fat invasion. From the side, a little guy was crying. He mercilessly pointed his weapon. One more sound and he will shoot. Qing rushed to the rescue and hit the man with the weapon. Another man panicked that his friend had been hit, and he didn't know who it was since Qing had gone into hiding. The husband ordered him to go out and not sentence him to kill the captain. It was necessary to save the hostage from the threat of a direct hit otherwise. The man pressed the trigger a little, and Qing rushed at him with his fists, splashing blood all over the plane. Qing was wounded and Chu wrapped his wound. He said that he would intervene with the robbers and save the people. There are a lot of people and you need to create a circus. The flight attendant approached the girl. If it weren't for her young boyfriend, they would probably all be dead. This confused her a little, and she directly said that this was not her boyfriend. As soon as he got off the plane, he immediately began to rush somewhere. He wanted to go home. When he almost got the bag, he really wanted to see his family. She didn't know the city well, but he was her brother's friend and should help her and protect her. She will send people for him tomorrow, so he must be ready to devote the whole day to her. Now it's clear why Jiang is so decisive. When he arrived at his clinic, his assistant was waiting there. She did not think that he could control armed robbers with his bare hands. In such a situation, not every special forces would concentrate, but he had never carried a weapon before, so he wanted to invite her to ask how life turned out for her employees. She could try to find them. She didn't understand what he was talking about, and her body began to shake. If she wants, Qing can try to find out how their lives turned out. She's surprised they could be found if she could try. He persuaded her and she began to look for some information about them that she had left. Under the mask of a steel girl hides a very fragile and vulnerable girl. She was able to keep some leads in her suitcase. She didn't think she would ever need them. She thanked from the bottom of her heart. Qing will do everything to find them. Qing arrived home. Qing was waiting for him. He finally returned home while she was working on the computer. Qing looked tired. She seemed to have a lot to do, but all this is not important. She will cope. He wanted to find out how she is doing. This is a discovery. Everything needs to be done. The weight of responsibility could crush her. She told him everything was fine. She just wanted to share the good news with him on this matter. She asked him to look at the laptop. They are just starting to unwind, and there is such a rush. He stroked her head. She is a real guru in the world of selling beauty products. It is because of him that she can now stand at the helm of cosmetics and run her business. Tomorrow afternoon there will be a joint meeting on people involved in cosmetics in Yangcheng, and she was invited by the director from her previous job. She didn't really want to meet him. He asked if she wanted to go there, but of course it is, because this is the most important and largest meeting. That's how many ties you can customize. Connections and acquaintances are never superfluous. But she doubted going there again, because if she leaves, it will turn out that she is again following everyone's lead. It was hard for her to refuse to leave. She really thinks that they are dreaming and see how to set her up. She is not worried about the Jiang family corporation, but she is still worried about her work. She did not hide what she was worried about, and he decided to leave with her. While he was treating the wound, he noticed that something was wrong with it. Chin walked up to him. She didn't know that he was injured. He pretended it was just a wound. He devoted a lot of time to his business. At this rate, her parents will definitely not have time to watch their grandchildren. He thought that the topic of grandchildren was closed, and this confused him. He asked her directly if she didn't like girls, but how could he ask such a thing? It was a secret topic, and also so personal. In fact, before meeting him, she had one boyfriend, but this almost led to her death. Since then, she promised herself not to fall in love with guys. She heard that she was not the only victim. He is now serving time behind bars, and she tried it with the girls. This did not turn out to be a very good poll. He was deceived again. He understood what was going on and wanted to support her, so he took her hand. She had her heart broken. She had to remember that he would never let anyone hurt her again. She realized what a fool she was. She was ashamed of her behavior, but everything that happened before was long gone. They turned off the lights. He was wounded, but not today. The next day, a janitor was cleaning their area. It was still night last night and now he needs to clean up after them for half a day. Chin was cooking for Chin and called her for breakfast. He asked how she was feeling. He wanted to offer her a professional massage. But everything was fine. She wanted to do without a massage. Then they needed to get ready. They needed to go to her convention. Chin took her to another store even though they had to go to a convention. Yes, they did. But Chin realized that every day more and more things were being done, and it was somehow not convenient to travel in his parents' car, and on mine it's exactly what you need. He asked how she liked the car, but since childhood she only liked crossovers. Chin wanted to inspect the interior, and someone told him that it was not fashionable to get into the car. The man asked if he had seen the price tag. If he makes even one dent, he will hit him himself. He knew people who only knew how to look and break. First, he wanted to see the car, since they were planning to buy a car for themselves, and asked if there was a test drive. The husband said that maybe there is, but he must be ready to invest, otherwise, all sorts of people walk around here, they break cars and then don't buy them, and this model is generally from a good series, they cherish it like the apple of their eye. Chin wanted to know how much needed to be arranged, usually about 800,000, but judging by them, they should invest at least 600,000, the deposit was equal to the price of the car itself. But it was true, it had long been a common practice, and he did it to them by God's grace. A poor guy came and gave him a test drive. He wanted to see how he would change his shoes and start. The girl didn't like this manner of communication. He spoke as if they still had to thank him. They didn't know how to conduct business normally, so she offered to leave. And they left. The man thought that they definitely didn't go to the next salon, and they told him fairy tales. They went home anyway. He wondered if they even saw themselves in the mirror. The girl was not well-groomed. Homeless people dress better. The employees said that they actually went to a neighbor's salon, and as they looked at the car, he couldn't believe it, how those poor people could go there. In a neighbor's salon, a man offered a car. The price of that car was 8 million. If Chin wishes, they can prepare a test drive. A man came to them from a neighboring salon, and he began to ask why he was showing such expensive cars to such a poor couple. This couple just entered it, they didn't even get the car out for 800,000, and he knows his prices very well, but in his salon, every client is dear and desirable. This is the basis of his business. Chin wondered if he would say that if they didn't buy anything, and he took a big risk, didn't he want to try a test drive, and handed over the card. He paid the full amount. The husband was happy and will go prepare the documents, while Chin can go to their rest room for now. The husband from the neighboring salon was shocked. He didn't think this guy was so rich. The husband invited them to go into the hall. Before they knew it, they would quickly arrange everything. He gave such a rich client to a neighboring salon. The man wanted to say something. He thanked him for such a good client. It completely killed the man. They came to the imperial fervor of Chin, not bad at dressing him. His old clothes were a little out of fashion. Moreover, it's high time to buy him a couple of suits. His phone rang. He remembered something. He warned Chin that he would leave because he needed to answer the call, and he would leave her alone for a couple of minutes. The girl shouted into the phone that she was at the Yangshan Businessmen's Congress, but Chin was not. She wanted to come there too. She was silent that Jiang is not the last people in this business. Chin reassured her that if she wanted to come, she could come. He told her to go to the penthouse in the emperor's courtyard. While he was talking on the phone from the toilet, Chief Jiang came out. He wanted her to help him out. He needed to meet one person, and he didn't know his way around this room well. She wondered who this super important person was. This face was familiar to him. He was also from the Jiang family. Her name is Jiang Zhan. She is staying in this house on the second floor. She said she would help him soon, but when this girl managed to fly to Yangchen, and even stay here, she was wondering if anyone else knew about it. When Qin was talking to an acquaintance, a woman approached her. She heard the smell of a dog because Qin had overdone it with perfume. She thought Qin wanted to pick up a guy. Qin didn't really like the fact that they had not yet met her and were immediately offended. She told the woman to wash her mouth with soap. She would not regret it. The woman hit Qin mercilessly. She raised her voice. This attracted people's attention. Qin is about to fly out of here like a cork. Did she think that since she quit her job, it was now fashionable for her to talk to her like that? It would be better if she took care of herself. Qin came to these screams, and saw that Qin's face had a mark from the blow on his face. The husband was already here as if he were here. Although he learns how to teach a woman to be smart, he asked if she hit Qin in the face. She cruelly replied that she was the one who hit her. After hearing, Qin did not hesitate to hit the woman. There was malice in his gaze, and his soul was filled with hatred for the woman who dared to hit his woman and get what she deserved. The woman screamed and spun around on the floor that she was being killed. The bitch Qin and her husband were beating people. Her husband came to the rescue. Finally, the husband came, but the bitch Qin set her husband on her, and he beat her. How could Qin allow her husband to let go of his hands? She should have apologized immediately, but the only one who should apologize here is that woman. She was the first to attack her. Qin stood in front of Qin. If Qin thinks she has found a new job, then she can do anything. She must not forget that she and Jiang have a contract. They are in the same trouble. She should not have drained it, because tomorrow her spirit would not be in this garden. Jiang Zhan approached them, and the main one. They stood up for Qin. Zhan wanted to hear how that person wanted to expel Qin. The woman asked her who she was anyway. She is too small to stick her nose where they don't ask. She was one of the main shareholders of the Jiang Corporation. They were shocked when Jiang herself came. The woman began to panic. She is Administrator Louis Shuqin, and her husband is Director Chen next to her. The woman said that this quarrel was just a misunderstanding. They are like cultured people. They came to a business forum, but here they are throwing their hands around. They gave Lu bruises, and in general, this couple here said such things about the Jiang company. He would have sorted it out if he were them. The main one asked if they were from a cosmetics company. That's where they were from. Holmes stopped cooperating with them. They post a penalty. The woman thought it was some kind of joke. They did not expect that the main one would be on their side. The man did not want any penalty. She spoke her words seriously. They dared to offend her family member, Jiang. In addition, they had an argument with Qin and brought dinner to a dear friend of their family. This could not be. Qin was his assistant, from whom she became a shareholder in the Jiang Corporation. He would never have thought that such a couple had such acquaintances. He would have known he would never get into a quarrel, even if that woman was killed to death. That girl was so offended for the first time. She hoped that the main one would take appropriate measures. She wanted to invite the guards to take them away, but they left on their own. It was clearly not in vain that she came and winked at Qin. If they want to thank her, she took the glass in her hands and asked them to bring her water. Qin wanted to quickly bring it, especially when Jean helped her. He introduced Zhan Qin as his woman. Qin was a little nervous. Jean looked like a cunning cat. The Qin woman was interesting. Her brother said something about Qin anointing a woman and all that, and here she was in complete beauty. Qin took the glass away. Jean said that she was just Qin's friend, nothing like that, and why did Qin grab this glass anyway? Jean is so beautiful and chic. She doesn't mind that she will occupy her husband for a while and help her get water. Qin pretended to be a good girl. Qin heard that it was time to run away. The situation between the girls was deteriorating. He said that it was time for him to go. He couldn't just up and leave. He went to the toilet for a minute. In a couple of minutes they will take out his whole brain. A quarrel was created out of nowhere. A woman's voice was heard. She asked if something was bothering him again. This was the main thing. He himself doesn't know if everything is fine with him, but everything started well, and then, as luck would have it, everything got worse. Qin and Zhan began to quarrel among themselves. It was all because he was too good, but the guy didn't even like that. He wanted the boss to transfer one thing from him. He gave her a flash drive. There she needed to check the addresses of a couple of people, in which case he was ready to answer all of Jiang Jie's questions. Their location is kept strictly secret, but it is very important to him. She thanked for your trust, she will tell you everything. And now he had to return. The main one was right, he hoped that he would be able to pass through them unnoticed. They were already driving home from Qin, in their new car. He was wondering what she had been talking about with Jiang Ran for so long. They talked about different things, for example, how he infuriates Jiang, and how she only listened to a stream of such lies from Jean. There were his jokes again. Jean was very good, and she also said that Qing was to blame for her breakfast, and she also secretly said that she liked Qing, but Qing didn't know it. She had gathered in Yangchen to meet with old friends, so her brother asked to look after her. He never thought it would be so hard. The girl was talking about this just as he went to talk to Chief Jiang about how she views further developments in Wuhan. He was interested in what the girl answered, but she didn't know yet. Of course, she didn't plan to be in Yangqing all her life. There are much more prospects of opportunity in Wuhan. He wanted her to think about it carefully, and when she made her final decision, they would talk about it seriously. She wondered if he would think about it, he would go with her, but if she makes such a decision, he will simply close the clinic and start packing his bags. When they arrived home, Qin's sister was waiting in the yard. She was happy that her sister finally arrived. The girl had been waiting for a long time. The girl really liked the villa, it was simply unsurpassed. No one has anything like it, even the richest. Qin asked her sister to treat Qin more important. She asked if the owner's son-in-law was suitable for him. It was the first time he had heard her call him that, but he liked it. They now live like real rich people. She wondered how he made money. Was it really on those creams? But there was nothing surprising, he just worked hard. He wondered what she was looking forward to when they arrived, but if he hadn't reminded her, she wouldn't even remember. There's going to be a big party at her school in a couple of days, and he still hasn't said whether he'll go with her or not. She hasn't been able to catch him for a couple of days. Everyone said that he has a lot to do, so she came. He'll definitely show up at home. He then said without thinking. She didn't want to hear that he wouldn't come. She was afraid that those guys might attack her again. He wondered if she was afraid of something, that she wouldn't just go to that party, but she didn't want to seem scary to everyone. The school might think bad things about her. If he has already given his word, then we need to go. He reluctantly agreed. She wanted to say something, but did not want him to interrupt her. About this she was a little embarrassed. He asked to help her and show her what she was capable of. The guy rolled up his sleeves. They went to the kitchen for ribs. Qin also wanted to help her husband. A month later, when Qin was in the clinic, he noticed that Liang, who had already worked well, did not have the only message he had for her military employees. He wanted to talk to her, but not to offend her. He coughed carefully. She thought that something had happened at the clinic, but there was no reason to worry. In a couple of days a group of healers, specialists in Chinese medicine, would come to them. He handed over the information of her employees. As soon as there was news, they would be contacted immediately. She was surprised that he took it so seriously and thanked him. He gave her his keys to the villa. She could feel at home in it. As soon as they settled down in Wuhan, they will immediately send for her. She didn't want to get into such an expensive car. She was in his eternal debt. She'd rather stay here and guard his clinic. She is his friend and not his debtor. Qin hurried to the flight. He said goodbye to Liang. Qin's things were already being brought into the house. The man supervised the workers so that they carried it very carefully, because it was not firewood that needed to be carried. His friend was glad that he dared. He missed him too. This is all because of the main Jiang. She helped prepare the move and even feel comfortable in the new place. It's cool to have siblings, but sometimes it gets tiring. And most importantly, they are equal partners in the Jiang Corporation. This should always be remembered. Qin now knows who to turn to in Wuhan. He is like a brother to him. He is supposed to meet with his colleague today, and would like to introduce them. Qin is not very happy that he will need to get acquainted again. She just needed to leave on business. If he had problems, she was in touch. She was not averse to him leaving with a friend. They went to the Ming Palace. That guy is supposed to get a degree in Chinese medicine today. Tomorrow, he was famous in Wuhan. As soon as he returned to his family, he opened a big clinic. He thinks that he is also planning to open up. The interest in Chinese medicine is a very good plus, and so they will get acquainted. Who knows what will come of it. He ran after her sister, and she sent him through the Qin. She said that he was her ideal. If he wants to achieve her, he must be like Qin. They went in and his sister and that man were there. He didn't believe that there was a healer in front of him. He put him in a much cooler position, and this is a simple guy. Qing thought that that girl had already talked about him. He was angry and hated Qing. He thought that Jean was mocking him by taking him as a partner. He received his medical degree from Cambridge and completed many courses in medicine. He wondered if the Qing had anything to prove their qualifications with. For Qing to know, this man was able to cure one of the safest diseases, polycystic tumor, and not just anyone, but the US president himself. How could a man be sure that Qing was no good for him? You can study not only in well-known institutes. His phone rang, but it's his day off today, and they're bothering him. He was immediately called to the hospital. The condition of his patient from ward 903 suddenly deteriorated sharply. He got angry and left immediately. He said that he needed to quickly check the condition of one patient and he had to leave. Of course they all understand this is his responsibility. The girl wanted Qing to go with him. The husband agreed. Let him go if he is not afraid. If he manages it alone, her praise is guaranteed. If he fails, forget her number forever. Qing didn't really want to get involved in this. They arrived at the hospital. The man asked to look into the patient's condition, but the patient seemed to be getting worse every minute. Finally, the doctor appeared. People grabbed the man from all sides. Their main one was on the verge of death. Why the man was unclear where. The man promised that he would put their boss on his feet, but he acted naive. He asked to calm down. He did everything according to the protocol. There should be no serious consequences. The man wanted to look and understand what happened. The man wanted to try on heavy force. Qing stopped his hand. What would be the use of their chief with a crippled doctor? He was in his place. It would be better to take him to the patient. The man was very angry and also wanted to exert force on Qing. He only paid attention to its possible consequences. Qing was so strong that he did not allow himself to be hit. At present, the patient's condition has not been fully diagnosed. Is he ready to be to blame for the fact that this crisis is not a sign of treatment? Qing spoke the truth. It was immediately clear that he was smart. The husband released the doctor. He did not understand how Qing managed to pacify this man. The situation is such that you wouldn't wish it on your enemy. The man did not let the doctor relax. They came to the patient. The doctor checked his pulse. A poisonous sleeping pill entered the man's body, but he could not feel his life force. He was missing something. He wanted to examine it carefully again. The doctor could not gather his thoughts, because that man was standing over his soul. Any mistake and the doctor will die. He had no right to make a mistake at all. He had to fully concentrate. He had not yet been prepared for such a situation. He had to exhale as usual and inject the needle. Qing told him to stop. An injection into that point would lead to death. A giant swelling had already appeared on his neck. He didn't think that the disease would develop this way. Now a complete transplant of all organs is needed to save him. The patient was breathing heavily. The man was shouting to do something. They were late. The doctor was powerless. Qing was taking out his medicine from his pocket. He was asking for help to tie his hands and feet. The patient could not be a test subject. He just wants to show off, because he sees everything himself and understands that nothing can be done there. He wanted to do his job. He injected his needles like a master. He should soon come to his senses. He would leave the medicine. Qing thought that there would be no more problems. This was impossible. All indicators were normal. The husband had already opened his eyes. He did not understand where he was. They were in the Wuhan Central Hospital, and in front of him stood his savior Qing Li. The man knew Qing. Qing didn't know him. He apologized. He confused him with his hidden capital friend. The capital again. This couldn't be just a coincidence. He wanted to know his medical history. Qing should lead recommendations there. He apologized for being so rude to Qing. He didn't remember anything about his family of origin, but intuition suggested that we need to look in the capital. Qing signed the papers. The doctor had long been looking for a survey specialist for the position of deputy chief physician. He invited them to be. The Yin and Yang Center was also looking for an assistant in the hospital. Today his life was in Qing's hands. He wanted to thank him in a human way. He didn't want to accept the gift. He was just lucky that he was there on time. He booked an apartment in paradise for 3 days. He hoped that Qing would not refuse to come and accept his gratitude. He must first be completely established. He did not do anything special. When he was traveling with his friend, Qing couldn't imagine what kind of man he saved. Probably a big shot. He didn't look like a common man. Qing guessed that the guardians of the body called him Xiao Xiao. adding to this the capital's reprimands, and there is no doubt that this is a member of the famous Xiu clan. The Xiu and Jiangs are the two oldest families in the capital, and it's doubly surprising that they forgot here. When he asked to find the Qing blood jasper, it was a surprise on the next Sunday holiday. But bad news came about the grandfather's well-being. They tried everything, but there was nothing left except one thing: how to contact the Qing. These were his words, that they were like brothers. If it can be cured, Qing will do everything in his power. His siblings have already contacted the General Cosmetics Company. Qing has nothing to worry about. A few days later they left for the Paradise Entertainment Center. The man came from the Qing. If not for him they could not drink together now. They drank to the Qing. Qing also decided to say a toast. Xiu had a positive expression on his face, but he cautiously recommends not to indulge in alcoholic drinks, while Qing has nothing to worry about here. He whispered in his ear whether he was interested in finding out who Xiu really was, but for him he was no more a patient. It was exactly the kind of friend he was looking for. Xiu's friends invited Qing to the table. A man burst into the club. He stood over the guy who spilled his drink on him. He was beaten and asked not to blame everything on him. It was Su's acquaintance. That guy broke the rules of the serious gang. If his health is important to him, then he better leave here. At first glance, the Jiang family seems to be in control, but most have no idea about the existence of the empire. We are talking about the same serious gang. It causes tremors even among the Jiangs themselves, and although the gang always remains in the shadows, its presence is felt everywhere. There are even rumors in the capital about the strength of the serious gang, because there are no better warriors than them. Warriors, this word speaks for itself. They are called human strongmen. The secrets of dark matter are accessible to them. Death is trying to stay away from them. Xiu Xiao's acquaintances quickly ran away from the party. The man on his knees asked them not to destroy the bar. He was ready to cover all his debts. He accidentally witnessed their conversation. But Xiu didn't approach it that way. His friend was ready to pay them for the inconvenience. If it wasn't enough, he would add more. He asked to name the amount and disperse peacefully. They didn't need money, but if he so wants to fit in with his friend, one blow from him. If he resists, his friend will be excused. He was just mocking Xiu. Qing stood up. He wanted to be hit. Qing didn't run away with everyone. He asked you to trust him. He didn't know what kind of people they were. These were not cheap antlers. They would have a little fun, and would not complicate things. Qing was ready to take his blow. Qing dodged one blow, but this is impossible. Only special ones knew the secrets of dark matter, but he won't be able to bow forever, and the man used force. Qing dodged again and fought off his attack. He is not simple. Now he could not wait for mercy. Qing gathered his forces and struck an unexpected blow. Their strengths were equal. Xiu wanted them to finish it. He didn't think that anyone in their right mind would want to cross his path. The man wanted to know where he found such a fighter. He couldn't win him before. As he had not guessed before, if he himself is interested in this conflict, then, of course, they close everything down. But what kind of acquaintance can there be without a fight, especially since he is here incognito, so he will be glad if they keep this secret. Xiu shouldn't even think about worrying like that, but he definitely didn't expect this from Qing. He was wondering where he learned such skill. He is a simple healer. Sometimes he trains for himself, nothing more. If he doesn't want to unshackle, he could say it directly. Basically, if he decides to change his field of activity, then Sirius is ready to accept it. If only he says so. Xiu didn't know that he controlled his body so skillfully. He thinks the man just wasn't ready for blood this time. Qing was very modest. He had only 2 days left before returning to the capital, and if fate takes him to his land, then he must remember that he is the most welcome guest. When Qing arrived home, he spoke to someone on the phone. He reminded that they should visit the capital together, the capital of the venerable clans. They should try to think everything through to the details. He will pick him up at 8 a.m. and everything will be decided on the spot. Tomorrow he is going to the capital. He has never seen what the younger Jiang was worried about. He had to concentrate. Today was the first time he met someone with a skill very similar to his, and he seemed to be able to feel that he had not relaxed in a long time. The methods of working with the body that his teacher taught brought him a lot of money. But now it seems to him that the teacher had a completely different goal, hidden from him. It was important for him to find out who forced his parents to flee, and what kind of force they were hiding through. There is not even a clue yet. He had to get his strength in order. The Jiangs were helping him in the search, but he was afraid that it would be impossible for him to meet his parents.